Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are back. We are live in the studio, and we are officially here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Friday to everybody. Folks, we're back in the studio. We are back in the studio. It has taken a little bit longer to get here, but I'm so happy to be back. I am late because I just got back to the apartment literally 7 minutes ago. So, it was weird when I was waiting for the Uber. Like, I would have been here at like 8:30 and would have been on time, but the Uber got changed 3 times. I know it sounds like I'm saying my dog ate my homework or something, but I was just looking at the Uber like, oh my goodness, dude. Like, can I just get one Uber to pick me up? But we're here. We're live. And the bricks are back. The bricks are finally back. Dude, as much as I love traveling and as fun as GTC was, it is so nice to just be back home, be in the studio. Happy Persian New Year to those that celebrate the Persian New Year. And we are officially here. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. It is Friday. It is also Quad Witching Day, which is the simultaneous expiration of multiple different types of options that we'll talk about. I think $5.7 trillion worth of options are expiring today. I think it's like in the top 3 quad witches we've ever had. It only happens 4 times a year. So definitely you can expect some shenanigans potentially in the broader derivatives market, which could obviously affect the options market and the overall equities market today, potentially even the credit markets. But outside of that, obviously the war is continuing. Oil prices continue to go higher. That is why the S&P 500 is red in the pre-markets. It's kind of been the same story that we've had over the past couple of days. There's some big SMCI news. I know that's making the headlines. We'll talk about that. But NVIDIA down, Micron down, S&P 500 down. It's not as red as it was early on in the morning, but we are still red. And it looks like it's going to be a red close to the week unless we can get above that 670 level, which if we don't get above it, and that would be a pretty dramatic Friday move to the upside if we do get above it, then it's going to be red. And so we'll talk about the implications of all this red, what it means, and honestly, we got 1 week left of March. So as we get through the end of March and we head into April, we are going to be down about 4% for the year on the S&P 500. Many stocks either down or flat year to date. And we're going to see what April has in store for us. But as of now, the story of the month has been the war continuing to increase oil prices, which obviously has put a strain on equities. So let's get into it. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We are not traveling at all after next week. Next week is the Los Angeles meetup on March 28th. After that, we are home for a good month and a half, and we will have no disruptions to the schedule. So very happy to just get back into the routine. And we missed like 2 shows this week. We didn't miss that many shows. We missed 1 market open, and, well, we missed like 3 market closes. So I guess we missed the market closes, but we only missed 1 market open. And then we did the market close the day that we missed it. So hopefully not too bad. Shout out to anyone I met at GTC. It was really awesome meeting people. Robbie, I met him on the street. It was super awesome meeting him. He's been supporting the channel for the past 3 years. Elaine, I got to meet as well. Elaine, for those that don't know, she is, I think I've told you guys about Elaine. She went very, very heavy into Palantir back in 2022. And she's an absolute darling. It was great to get lunch with her yesterday. And then Krupa. I hope Krupa's watching. I was at the airport waiting to get on my flight, and her husband walks up to me and he's like, "Are you Amit?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "My wife's a big fan." And I'm like, "All right, let's FaceTime your wife." And so we FaceTimed her while she was driving. And that was definitely a fun moment. So appreciate seeing everyone that was at GTC. It was a great time. It was super fun. And yeah, shout out to Krupa and Sridhar, who have me playing in the background while their son is listening every day. Deeply, deeply humbled by that. Means a lot. And he was ironically on his way to Singapore. So he's from Singapore. They live in the Bay Area, but maybe we'll see him at the Singapore meetup as well. So thank you all for being here. Let's get into it, and let's see what we got going on in the markets. All right, so before we get into all the major headlines, SMCI, this is the big thing. This is absolutely insane. 25% down. Now, remember, SMCI Supermicro, they supply the server racks for NVIDIA. Dell does as well. Is Dell up in the pre-market? They compete with Dell and HP. Dell is up 4% for obvious reasons. SMCI's co-founder has been charged for smuggling $2.5 billion worth of NVIDIA GPUs to China. I mean, this story is one of the most juiciest stories I've ever heard of. And it's not that juicy because, quite frankly, SMCI was accused of accounting fraud back when Ernst & Young, their auditor, quit on them. And maybe now we know why they quit. Maybe E&Y actually saw some stuff that was going on with SMCI. And as a result, that's leading to the equity downside that we're seeing here in the pre-market. Shout out to Elaine. There she is right there. It was great. Thanks again for your time. I went to the best Chinese spot in San Jose. It's called Home Eat. It is one of the cheapest spots I've ever ate at in California. You get like massive amounts of food for like 20, 30 bucks. And it was like the best orange chicken I've ever had in my life. So Elaine and I had some nice lunch there. So Home Eat, if anyone's ever in San Jose, like genuinely, I thought this was some of the best Chinese food I've ever had. But the SMCI co-founder was charged with this. SMCI co-founder faces up to 30 years in federal prison. He was caught on surveillance camera using a hairdryer to swap serial number stickers on the GPUs. They built thousands of fake dummy servers to fool U.S. compliance auditors, and 510 million worth of these GPUs were shipped in just 3 weeks in spring of 2025. Now, NVIDIA came out. They put out a statement and they said, hey, we will comply with the law. We didn't know this was happening. If this was happening, it was not because of us. It was because of our suppliers. We can't really control everything our suppliers do. But obviously, this is not the best situation for SMCI. Now, I don't think that many people are super levered into SMCI. It was one of those important trades back in 2023, 2024, had a little bit of momentum in 2025, but it's collapsed ever since their margin profile was not able to improve. And not only were their growth expectations lower than what the street was expecting, but obviously the whole E&Y incident with their auditor leaving just left a bad taste in people's mouths. So this is a crazy story, down 25%. I wonder if the market says, you know what, even if this is true, the overall business is going to still be very good and the multiple trades that is relatively cheap and people step in and buy the dip. But man, when your co-founder, by the way, the co-founder is worth like a couple $100 million. He really didn't need, I guess greed gets the best of you, but it's not like the guy was broke for him to have to smuggle chips into China just to make an extra couple bucks. And so it's a very weird story in terms of how this played out. But I also think it opens up the investigation into other companies in the supply chain for NVIDIA that potentially were smuggling these chips into China, which also explains how, China's still been able to train some of their advanced models even without the export controls being in favor for SMCI. The question is, will NVIDIA distance from SMCI? Yeah, that's a great question. And, Jensen's a really no bullshit type of guy. I think he's going to be pretty pissed off finding out this headline, which is why Dell's up 4%. Because first of all, Dell already beat expectations by $17 billion last quarter. It's one of the best quarters we've ever seen. But also, if SMCI ends up losing all their purchase orders from NVIDIA and those server racks end up going to Dell, that should only increase the not only pricing power that Dell has, but the ability for Dell to just beat expectations across the street. And that's why that stock is up 4.5%. I would not dumpster dive on SMCI. I think you want to give this some time to see how it plays out. But 30% right here is definitely pretty ugly. And you're seeing that right now on SMCI. Oil prices, what do we got going on? So crude is at $95. This is the second week in a row of crude being above 85. I think this is the first week where crude has stayed above 90 for the entire week. It probably had some dips below 90, but realistically, the average weighted price is $90. Obviously, this is not good for the equity markets, and equity markets have signaled that it's not good. S&P 500 is down for the month. Now, month to date, we are down 4.3%. I mean, look, at its core, we've talked about this over the past couple of days. What do you do in situations like this? And, I'm going to steal one of Elaine's quotes that she gave me yesterday, which I thought was a great saying. Sometimes neutral is a mode, right? You can drive, you can reverse. Drive would be buying, reverse would be selling. And sometimes you stay neutral. And I think in a world in which we just don't have the level of certainty that we had post-Liberation Day when we knew things were going to rebound, there really is no certainty on when this war is necessarily going to come to an end. Staying in neutral is not the worst idea. Could I see the S&P 500 going lower and the broader market going lower? Obviously, if things stay elevated for a long period of time, the odds of recession increase. And we had Waller that was on CNBC, one of the Fed presidents. We'll see his thoughts on inflation and labor markets in a second. But I also think multiples have gotten pretty ridiculously cheap. And unless we get a recession that would cause the consumer to collapse, which is possible, I think those multiples are a bit too cheap. So I don't think it has to go that much lower. Having said that, I don't think Meta can break out to 740 in this environment either, which is why the market's kind of a neutral. And the chop that we've experienced over the past couple of weeks, I mean, Micron earnings to me was the biggest signal of that chop continuing to persist. Micron, again, we talked about it yesterday. They put up the best earnings in the history of earnings outside of some of the stuff that NVIDIA did in May of 2023, just on the basis of beating expectations. Like when you beat expectations by 40, 50, 60%, that means the street had a fundamental structural misunderstanding of what was happening in your business. Micron's forward PE is now 4.9. There are a lot of companies in the world that trade at that multiple that do not grow EPS 40%. And so from that perspective, it's like, yeah, it does look cheap. Obviously, it's cheap for a reason based on the whole cyclicality narrative, which I know people are tired of hearing, but nonetheless, that is the reason for why this thing is getting hit. But I also think the broader macro and oil prices and geopolitical uncertainty is another reason why it's very tough for a stock like Micron, which is already up 50% year to date, right? It's not like it's had a bad year, is not getting the momentum to the upside. And unfortunately for the Micron shareholders, we're going to have to see how that plays out. Obviously, if you've bought in this week, it's a little tough. But if you've been holding on for a while, you probably can't be too upset given the company has been executing at a pretty strong level. Amazon's down in the pre-market. Zeta's down a little bit. Oracle's down. Lockheed Martin. Palantir's down 1%. Nebby's down 1%. Nothing too crazy in the pre-market given what we've seen over the past couple of days. SoFi down about 0.5%. But it is indeed red. And we will see as we get into quad witching in the next 20 minutes when the market opens if the red continues or if we start to see a little bit more of a reversal right here. I missed the brick wall, not going to lie. You know what? I missed the brick wall as well. I should have been home 2 days earlier because I really wasn't doing anything at GTC Wednesday and Thursday. And it was just like a scheduling thing that I messed up on, realizing I should have been here earlier. But we're back. Excited to be here. And the bricks are back in the background. Let's get into what Waller said, because this is one of the doves on the Federal Reserve. Even though he voted to not cut rates, he's also thinking a hike isn't likely, even though now we're pricing in a 6% chance for a hike in April. Here's what he had to say about inflation, labor market, and then we'll keep going from there.
This inflation problem may be worse than I think it is if this continues. Now we'll wait and see. We don't know where this is going to go, but we have to sort of think maybe caution is warranted. And it brings me back to one of the last points I wanted to make. In March of 22, before we were going to lift off the zero lower bound in March of 22. And I had been advocating that we should go off by 50, get off, immediately raise rates by 50 basis points. After that, Russia invades Ukraine. And everybody it's kind of the same boat as here. Caution is warranted. So don't do anything right now. And that's the same approach I took this time. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stay put for the rest of the year. I just want to wait and see where this goes. And if things go reasonably well and the labor market continues to be weak, I would start advocating again for cutting the policy rate later this year.
Walk me through the horizon of different policy outcomes that you think. Chair acknowledged that there was a discussion at the meeting of rate hikes. Where do you stand on that possibility?
Well, I think if people are worried, I'm not speaking for any of my colleagues, I'm just laying out some theoretical points. If you think inflation, say in December of 2024 was headline PC was 2.8. It's 2.8 roughly now. So there's like no change in inflation in all that time. And if you're worried about it going up from here, then there's a sense in which people say, look, we've got to raise rates to get inflation back down and under control. I have taken the view that if it was 2.8 in December of 24 and 2.8 now, it's not structural. Because if it was structural and you believe tariffs were being passed through by 50 to 100 basis points, then inflation should be running 3.5 to 4, not 2.8. So if the tariffs had any pass-through effect, then structural had to come down to maintain 2.8.
I hope people get that math. It's pretty interesting, right?
We are making progress.
You added a half to 1 from tariffs.
Yep.
You had 2.8. You are 2.8. So therefore, it should be 3.5.
Something had to go down
in there. So it didn't go down. So you think that the structural inflation rate is probably more like 2 right now.
It's getting closer to 2. That's why I think once you get past the tariffs and maybe the second quarter, you're going to see inflation come back down.
So this is the good thing about what Waller said, which is, very similar to what Trueflation was making the argument for as well, which is that, look, inflation is not necessarily something that we have to be scared about on a structural level, because a lot of the things that we've seen that have spiked inflation, for example, tariffs, have been one-time price impacts. In fact, Jay Powell, even in December, famously said that he thinks tariff inflation is overdone and it's not really as big of a deal. This oil shock that we've seen, obviously PPI this week was disgusting. That's another reason why the S&P and the broader markets have been bad. This oil spike, theoretically, even though I know there were a lot of headlines yesterday about Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar, again, in terms of their refineries and stopping production, it should be temporary. Like, I know there have been facilities that have been hit and the implications will last for years, which isn't temporary. But in general, if the war were to end tomorrow, I mean, the market's perception of oil would likely be going to the downside, which would be good for stocks. And so I think Waller understands that. I think Warsh understands that. Stephen Moran, who voted for the rate cut, obviously understands that. But you've got a lot of skeptics on the Fed that are going to need to see the data to make that happen, which is also another thing that's really important. If we want to get that rate cut this year, which now is priced out for January of 2027, it's not even priced for 2026 anymore. We're going to need to have oil come down soon, if we want any shot of it happening in June or July in terms of rate cuts. Because we need a couple months for oil to be down for that to impact the actual data. And, until oil comes down, AKA until the war ends, we're going to be living in a different paradigm for how we think of inflation in this country. So it is a very weird situation right now to navigate. I think a lot of people did not think Trump would actually let oil get this high. And we'll listen to a couple clips of what he said yesterday. But, Trump has obviously made his priorities very clear about winning this war, and that has taken precedence over oil prices in the short term. Trump has literally said, this matters more than nuclear threat over oil prices. And as a result, this is the new economy that we're living in. And we're going to have to see how we can navigate it. Triple V, thank you for being here. And thank you for the $200 super chat. Deeply, deeply appreciate you being here and being part of the channel. He just texted me. He said, will they rename the Strait soon like they did with the Gulf? If it ends up becoming the Strait of America, that I don't know if our Gulf allies would be happy if America fully took over the Strait. But honestly, maybe they would be for now, because the Strait of Hormuz under Iran's control has not really allowed too much progress with oil. What the funny thing is? There have been reports that Iran has been letting other countries get their ships into the Strait of Hormuz. And I believe the price Reuters reported was $2 million to get your ship through the strait, but they are not allowing any U.S. or Israeli ships or any ships that are part of the ally ecosystem, France, Germany, the UK, etc., for the United States. So they're charging money to get you through the Strait of Hormuz, and they're just picking and choosing who they want to get through. It hasn't turned into like a full-on war at the strait, even though President Trump has signaled that his ships will be easily able to make sure that anything that needs to happen will happen in a productive way. Right now, it hasn't gotten that hostile. And I imagine if oil prices continue to stay that high, maybe it ends up happening as we get into the end of the year. Now, Japan's prime minister was with Trump yesterday. There were a bunch of different moments from that I thought were relatively important. One of the biggest things was, this main question that Trump got in regards to what happened with the oil and gas fields on Israel. Again, Trump did tweet out that Netanyahu himself decided to strike those oil and gas fields. He was not happy about that, and he does not want that to happen in the future. Here's what Trump had to say when he was asked about that.
Thank you, Mr. President. You talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about attacking the oil and gas fields.
Yeah, I did. I told him, don't do that. And he won't do that. We didn't discuss. We do, we're independent. We get along great. It's coordinated, but on occasion he'll do something, and if I don't like it, and so we're not doing that anymore.
And the last one, if I.
And then this is what Trump said about how he thought this excursion, which is what he's calling this whole situation, would be worse than it currently is.
And they said that was even more impossible than the Dow hitting 50, and we did that in 1 year. So it's all done. Everything was going great. The economy was great. Oil prices were very low. Gasoline was dropping to. We had $1.99, $1.85. We had great everything. And I saw what was happening in Iran, and I said, I hate to make this excursion, but we're going to have to do it. And I actually thought the numbers would be worse. I thought that it would go up more than it did. But we're doing this excursion, and when it's completed, we're going to have a much safer world. And the prime minister agrees with me on this. She considers it to be terrible what Iran did. I think every country does, just about every country does. Iran is a serious threat to the world, to the Middle East and to the world. And everybody agrees with me. I think virtually every country agrees with me on that. So I wanted to put out that fire. And I said, if I do that, oil prices will go up, the economy will go down a little bit. I thought it would be worse. Much worse, actually. I thought there was a chance it could be much worse. It's not bad, and it's going to be over with pretty soon. We've obliterated their Navy. We've obliterated their just about everything there is to obliterate, including leadership. Their Navy's gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft equipment is gone. We're flying wherever we want, Pete. We have nobody even shooting at us.
Take a look at this chart right here. These are crude oil prices surging to historical records. This is the year-to-date change by year since 1986 on a percentage basis. As you can see in the orange, which is 2026, it is the fastest velocity of increase in oil prices that we've seen basically in 40 years. In that clip, Trump is acknowledging, I mean, he's quite literally saying, I knew oil prices would go up and the economy would go down, but I needed to take action on Iran. And so the story that he's painting to the American people is that, look, everything was great. Oil prices were down. Economy was booming. GDP was awesome. But I had to go through this, as he calls, excursion. And now it's just a question of if the market believes that excursion was worthwhile, if the American people believe it was worthwhile, and if it ends soon. Now, once again, he did say it was going to end soon in that clip. Netanyahu had a whole press conference yesterday also implying that the war was going to end soon. These guys keep saying it's going to end soon. If you were at your phone yesterday or you were looking at your portfolio, and I think it was about 3 p.m. or 3:15 p.m., 12:15 Pacific time, basically 45 minutes before the market closed, market went up. It was like a vertical line. And everyone started tweeting, what happened? What happened? What happened? And Netanyahu was speaking, saying, hey, I think the war is going to end soon. And the algos took those words and was like, boom, cool, to the moon. And literally 7 minutes later, it just went right back down. I mean, it is just an unbelievable set of emotions that are dictating how the algorithms are thinking about the market. Because first of all, if Netanyahu says the war is going to end soon, at this point, no one believes it. So why would the algos even react to that? But they are reacting, and they're giving people this false sense of hope of really thinking, oh, wow. We went green yesterday. We went to 660 on the S&P for like about 7 minutes, and then we came right back down. It is just incredible to see the level of excitement the market has on the idea of the war ending soon. Now, if the war was actually ending, if Trump and Netanyahu came out and said, yep, we're done, we won, I think the market rallies heavy. I think that's like a 5% S&P 500 day. But, is that going to happen? And if that is going to happen, when is it going to happen? I think it's a broader question. The other big moment from the Trump press conference was this. I think a lot of people have seen it, but this one definitely did some numbers.
Well, one thing, you don't want to signal too much. When we go in, we went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay, why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay, right? He's asking me, do you believe in surprise? I think much more so than us. And we had to surprise him, and we did.
The question was from a Japanese reporter about why didn't you tell Japan about the attack? Trump was like, I want to keep it a surprise. And you could see her face when he mentions, why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor, which obviously was a surprise attack from the Japanese on the United States. I don't think the prime minister was the happiest about that, but nonetheless, that moment went pretty freaking viral yesterday. I mean, when I listened to it live, I was like, oh, okay. I guess the president went there. So yeah, that was another moment that happened at the White House. Now, the Japanese prime minister was there at the White House. They were at a dinner. There were a lot of people at this dinner. You had SoftBank's Masa-san, who was there. Sundar Pichai was there. You had the elite of the elite at this dinner. You had Alex Karp, Shyam Sankar, Palantir CEO and CTO there. Like, everyone was at this dinner. I didn't know this was that big of a dinner. I thought this was just Trump meeting the Japanese prime minister. But yeah, it was a lot of business officials there. So, Japan has been one of our biggest allies for a very long time. Obviously, Japan's debt to GDP ratio is almost double the United States, and they need to buy our treasuries. They're one of the largest foreign holders of our treasuries. We need to make sure the yen also is well supplied to not spike to the moon, which is really bad for tech stocks because there's a lot of people that short the yen to be able to buy tech stocks. So there's just a lot of interplay between the relationships for the United States and Japan. And overall, I think it was a good diplomatic meeting yesterday. Again, question becomes, what help are they going to give to be able to potentially end this war? And even Trump said to the Japanese prime minister's face, we don't need Japan's help and we don't want anybody's help because we can do this ourselves. But it's always nice to have different allies on the board if you're eventually trying to get this job done. Meta right there, down about 0.2%. Robinhood down 0.35%. S&P down 0.25%. ASTS is down. Palantir's down. Nebius down 1%. VG had a big move yesterday. Then it faded all of it. Fell down 4% after oil prices starting falling, after Netanyahu said the war is going to end soon. This is why I think it's very hard to be leveraged into oil and gas or defensive plays right now. All the drone stocks took a disgusting hit yesterday when Netanyahu said the war is going to end soon. Red Cat was down 10%. Ondas, Kratos, all of them were down 5 to 7% yesterday. Because if the war is going to end soon, then maybe the purchase orders for all the autonomous weapons and drones also end soon. And so if you're in these plays, you just have to be so contingent on the headlines and what the headlines say in regards to, or the implications of the headlines in relationship to all these defense names or oil names. But all of those were super green yesterday and ended up going red on the day. Broadcom down 0.36%. AppLovin's down 1.3%. Coke's down. Verizon's down. UPS is down. I mean, across the board, nothing's like super, super red outside of SMCI, down 27%. But everything is definitely not green. 5.7 trillion. That's the amount today of expirations on index options, ETF options, single stock options, and futures. That is quad witching, happens 4 times a year. 5.7 trillion will be the largest March options expiration. Obviously, this could have a lot of different impacts on the broader equity markets. Now, Goldman Sachs also put out a note yesterday. They said long onlys net sold 9.6 billion across our floor today and ran a 50% sell skew. This is the largest day of net selling in our data set history, going back to 2022 and a 5 sigma event. So, and I'll put the red or green poll right here in the chat. You have Goldman Sachs coming out saying, hey, based on what we're seeing on our trading desk, we saw the largest day of selling across the entire stock market since 2022, which, maybe that's a head fake because obviously today's quad witching day and, people are traders are selling out of positions or hedging positions by selling stock and going long calls, things of that nature to be able to navigate it. But if it's based on oil prices going up and you're starting to see a little bit more bearish momentum come in, we looked at a couple charts over the past couple of days where put skew ratios on the S&P 500 hit their not their all-time highs, but their highs since 2021 in terms of the levels of the premiums people are willing to pay for puts. Yeah, people are definitely getting a bit more bearish. And that level of bearishness is creating a bit more momentum to the downside. This was also, I think, a pretty interesting piece of data from Bank of America's fund manager survey. Wall Street is getting a bit more worried about CapEx. 22% of global fund managers now believe companies are deploying too much CapEx, the second highest on record. Obviously, why are they thinking of this? Because their stocks are going down, right? When their stock, if Meta was $800, they probably wouldn't think it's enough CapEx. But now that the stocks are flat and Wall Street needs an answer to their clients for why these stocks are down, they're like, well, it's not us, it's the CapEx. And you're starting to see a little bit more concern right here. In the prior 20 years of the survey, fund managers had never been concerned about firms overinvesting. By comparison, 70% of participants believe companies were investing too little in 2017. So, will the big tech companies actually listen to any of these concerns? Probably not, because at the end of the day, they will continue to spend. But if margins get compressed, and particularly multiples get compressed, that might be the easiest way for the big tech companies to start feeling that they need to take some action on this. And, we've seen this with Meta. There's a lot of rumors this week that Meta is going to get rid of Reality Labs as an entire division. That has not been officially confirmed. But we did see that Bloomberg article back in December of Zuck saying he was going to potentially cut 30% of the people that worked in Horizon Worlds, which would be a pretty decent cut for the overall metaverse initiative. I think Zuck should do it. They spent $80 billion over the past 5 years. If they freaking get rid of the metaverse, I mean, operating margins should go up and they should save a ton of money, at least in that part of the business, even if they're spending all their free cash flow on CapEx. And I think the stock would rally on that. But that would also have to be the death of the metaverse, and Zucks would have to admit that changing the name from Facebook to Meta was a mistake if there's no metaverse. Otherwise, what's the point of Meta? So as a shareholder, I wouldn't care. Like, who cares if, he has to admit that the name change was a mistake. But I think, from an ego perspective, $80 billion mistake, you might not want to admit that too soon. And so we're going to see what ends up happening. NVIDIA right there going green, actually, 4 minutes before we go in. Nothing else is green, only NVIDIA. We're not seeing a lot of other names get a green candle. I don't know if we got a headline or anything real quick, or that's just the market playing with us again. I think there's going to be a lot of weird stuff that happens today because of quad witching. But you are seeing NVIDIA get a little bit of green candle. Speaking of NVIDIA, Jensen was on the All In podcast. I thought there were some interesting moments in it, but the number one thing he said is that the agentic ecosystem is not going to be stopping anytime soon. And in particular, he's really on this wave of more token usage that will be happening across the entire enterprise. In fact, he said that he thinks Anthropic's numbers and the projections on Anthropic's numbers are actually conservative. And the conservative estimate he's referring to is $100 billion of revenue by 2027. He thinks it's going to be more. By the way, I also got to see my cousin yesterday out in California. She works at a tech company. And I asked her about Anthropic. And she said, I was like, give it to me straight. Like, legit, like, could you live without it? And she's like, I and many other people in my company cannot live without this product. like this product is the basis for everything we do, specifically when it comes to coding. That's the main use case she was talking about. And it makes sense given Anthropic has increased their revenue by $6 billion over the past month. So here's what Jensen had to say yesterday when he was talking about Anthropic and their ability to be conservative. If Anthropic ends up making a lot of money, hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue, a lot of that comes back to NVIDIA.
Revenue out of the model companies and the agent companies, and he forecasts $1 trillion by 2030. Right, this is non-infrastructure AI revenue.
I think he's being very conservative. I believe Dario and Anthropic is going to do way better than that.
Wow.
Way better than that.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
from
and
30 billion to $1 trillion.
Yep, and the reason for that is the one part that he hasn't considered is that I believe every single enterprise software company will also be a reseller, value-added reseller of Anthropic code, Anthropic's tokens, value-added reseller
be.
of OpenAI.
Have to be.
Value, that's right.
Yeah.
And they're gonna that part of their
Get this logarithmic expansion.
yes,
Yeah.
their go-to-market is going to expand tremendously
What do you
this
think?
year.
What do you think in that world is the moat? What's left over? I mean,
So, I mean, Jensen's pretty bullish on these foundation model companies. By the way, NVIDIA did invest, I think, $10 billion in the latest round. So NVIDIA does give you exposure. Amazon is obviously, I think, the best exposure given they own 15% of Anthropic. But by the way, in the private markets too, I was talking to another VC friend that I had lunch with in California. Anthropic raised at $380 billion. They're going for $600 billion in the private markets. That company is not worth $380 billion. That's what they raised on paper. They are going for $600 billion. So there is no doubt in my mind they're going to IPO at $800 to $1 trillion of market cap. And same thing with OpenAI, probably going to IPO at $1 trillion. SpaceX obviously getting ready for almost a $2 trillion IPO. So got a lot of these companies that are getting ready to go public. If they can keep up these growth rates, obviously it's going to be very beneficial for the semiconductor ecosystem, for the CapEx build out, but also for showing the hyperscalers that AI ROI is available, given the foundation models are paying the hyperscalers a lot of money ultimately for this compute. All right, let's get into it. Thank you everybody for being here. It is Friday, March 20th, 9:30 a.m. The big bell is back, baby, and the stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. NVIDIA, 177.86. That is down 0.79% on the day. Dell gets a 4% move. Again, SMCI's co-founder was accused of smuggling $3 billion worth of chips from NVIDIA to China. They make the server racks for those NVIDIA chips. That's why that stock is down 27%. Dell is one of the biggest competitors. Dell looks like it's getting the upside from the downside of SMCI. Dell's up 4%, SMCI down 27%. Red Cat, that's down 0.5%. Robinhood, that's down 2%. Meta, that's down 0.5%. Next Decade had a nice run yesterday. That's up another 1.2% on the day. The space names have gone crazy this week, and I don't really know why. Maybe because Jensen talked about space data centers. But Rocket Lab, that's up 1%. Rocket Lab did issue a $1 billion at-the-money potential offering they can do. So that, kind of shot down some of the momentum. But still, holding above 72 is not that bad at all. Rivian's down 2%. Tesla loses 380. Did we lose 380 yesterday? Did we end below 380 yesterday? I think we did. Wow, I didn't even see that. All right, Tesla 376. That is down 1% on the day. Netflix is down. Netflix back to 90. All right. Last time I saw Netflix was 94. So that one's getting hit. IGV Software down 2% on the day. Continues its pain. SanDisk is down. Western Digital is down. Where is Micron? That is down 2% even after those amazing earnings. ASML is down. Mercado Libre is down. HIMS is down. Where is Hoodie? That is down 2%. Palantir 153. Palantir 153.09. That's down 1.6%. Ethereum down about 0.5%. South Korea down 2.3%. The healthcare names are also down. Figma got wrecked because Google introduced some new feature that I think it's called like Google Stitch that allows you to like put different designs together. I don't think Figma deserves to get hit that bad, but unfortunately the narrative is that, the big guys are going to take over these very niche markets around design, even though those niche markets could be $100 billion markets. Figma, $12 billion market cap. They're getting the brunt of it. That stock is down 4.3%. SMCI down 30% now on the day. I would not go dumpster diving here. Volume is 44 million within the first 2 minutes. Their co-founder got accused of something very, very serious. Could have implications for the entire relationship of the company with NVIDIA. So even if you think it's cheap, it's just tough if NVIDIA says, you know what, we're just not going to do business with these guys anymore because NVIDIA doesn't want to get in trouble, with the United States government around smuggling chips to China. And so that could be something that affects them. Dell now up 6% on the day based on that SMCI headline. You have the other space names getting some love. Firefly, that's up 14% on the day. Planet Labs is up 32%. What is going on with the space names?
What the hell is going on with the space names? Amazon is down 2%. Not sure why. I'll see if there's a headline on Amazon, but Amazon just got hit. Why are the space names moving like this? Rocket Lab's up 2%. ASTS is up 2%. Is SpaceX going public tomorrow or something? Like, what's Lunar's up 5.3. Planet Labs. Oh, they had earnings yesterday? Okay. Well, that actually makes sense. I guess those earnings are good for Planet Labs in particular, but I guess those earnings are also pumping up the entire freaking street. Wow. Planet Labs beat by 100% on EPS yesterday, beat by 11% on revenue. Okay, that'll do it. Yeah, $12 billion company, not the biggest company in the world. 32% is still pretty damn incredible. But they beat EPS by 100%. They were expected to lose 5 cents. They ended up coming in at 0, which is better than losing 5 cents a share. That stock now 32%. ASTS up 2%. Lunar's up 5%. Firefly up 12.8%. UMAC is down 9%. UMAC is drones, right? Why are all the drone names continuing their pain? Redcat below 15. Ondas is down 2%. UMAC's getting hit the worst right here, down 9. Kratos as well got hit yesterday and continues to get hit today, down 1.84%. Amazon's got an issue. I don't have the headline for you guys, but Amazon is having an issue right here, down 1.67. Cactus, if you have a headline on Amazon, you can send it, but I don't see anything here. This is the Mac 7 that's getting hit the worst. Tesla... Well, Tesla's also almost at the same rate of decline as Amazon. Is Meta also? Dude, Meta below 600. There you go. Okay, maybe it's not an Amazon thing, guys. Maybe it's Mac 7. Maybe it's Mac 7. Almost all of them are down 1.5%. Google also almost down 1.3%. Amazon's getting hit the worst, but actually Tesla's getting hit the worst now, 1.67. Wow. This is a Mac 7 meltdown today, and obviously you got a lot of options expiring, which could be contributing to that. NVIDIA also down 1%. NVIDIA is getting hit the least. Actually, let's check Apple. Apple getting hit the least out of all of them, then NVIDIA. Then you've got the rest of them. Software as well, 82.71. A lot of people thought 84 was that bottom on software. The actual bottom was 76 back on February 24th. We're not close to that, but we were definitely losing that 84 level. Rocket Lab going green. Maybe Planet Labs was enough. The fact that Saidu Space is up 4%, this is one of the smaller space companies, also shows you that there's a lot of love for the space names today. For some reason, FICO's up a little bit. UNH is down 0.5%. Microsoft down 1.18. Yeah, all the Mac 7. All the Mac 7 are taking a hit. Probably a lot of options expiring out of the money today. Yeah, and there's an incentive for some of those market makers to keep them out of the money, which could also be creating a lot more pain. I'm looking at this headline right here. Diesel spike is hitting the real economy. Diesel, not gasoline, is the bigger economic risk. Prices have surged past $5 a gallon, sharply increasing costs for trucking, shipping, farming, and manufacturing. Because diesel is embedded in almost all goods, higher costs ripple throughout the economy, pushing up inflation and squeezing margins. Even a 10% rise in diesel can lift overall consumer prices. That's a very general market headline, but maybe that's causing a bit more pain. CoreWeave is down. How about Nebius? Nebius relatively flat, pretty resilient, holding at 120, which is not too bad. Again, we talked about SMCI. Their co-founder was accused of smuggling $3 billion worth of chips from NVIDIA to China by using different packaging codes on hair dryers. There's actually a picture of it right here. It's kind of crazy inside the investigation for getting those chips into China. So that obviously, if I'm NVIDIA, I end business with them today. And I say, Dell, you're going to take all their business. We can't have this supply chain risk in our ecosystem, especially on something as geopolitically intense as China and U.S. relations. So SMCI deserves to be down 30% right here. Now, will it stay down 30%? I don't know. But if I'm Jensen, you got to look real hard on if you want to give SMCI any more purchase orders. I hope NVIDIA wasn't aware of this. I hope so as well. Obviously, NVIDIA will probably come out and deny it. They've already come out and denied it. But, if there's any further investigation that NVIDIA knew about this, which would not be the best thing in the world. Now, again, the thing is, I find it hard to believe NVIDIA knew about this because they're growing so much without China that any incremental couple billions of dollars wouldn't have even done anything on the earnings from Chinese revenue. So the fact that domestic demand has been so strong maybe decreases the incentive for NVIDIA to have played a role. There are 655 on the S&P. That is down 0.5%. Dell up 7%. Amazon had an outage. Maybe that could also be causing some pain right there, 206.71. Well, you're seeing a little bit of a green candle, 205 to 207. So we're getting a little bit more of the upside there. SoFi, this one again, we had Tanner on the show yesterday, explain his thoughts about the short report. I agree with him. I think the short report is bogus, but obviously the company is being interpreted as a bank with very, very bad credit quality, even though I don't think that's the case, but there's a lot of concerns about delinquencies right now. A lot of concerns. I mean, we've been covering the private credit headlines. I think the biggest headline yesterday was around BlackRock and one of their new private credit funds that they are either winding down or, oh no, this was the headline. JP Morgan. Oh yeah, this was actually ironic. JP Morgan and Goldman are offering funds a way to short private credit. The firms have assembled baskets of listed companies with exposure to the space, including European financial institutions and alternative managers. The private credit market is facing pressure from a wave of investor redemption, driven in part by concerns that lenders may be too heavily reliant on software companies and their valuation. So even the big guys that are exposed to private credit are like, well, we might as well start shorting the shit and make some money off of it. And as a result, you know, you're seeing a lot more pain in that entire ecosystem. NVIDIA is about to lose 177. Where's the 10-year? Are we still above 4.2? Oh my goodness. This is not good, folks. We just hit 4.3. When's the last time we hit 4.3? Last time we hit 4.3 was February 4th, and we hit 4.29. We didn't even hit 4.3 officially. This is the first time in a while we have legit hit 4.3. Even on January 20th, it was 4.295. It was not actually 4.3. Not good. Not freaking good. The highest we got to was 4.8 back in January of last year. We almost got to 4.7 in April of last year when stocks were falling. Again, stocks going down and yields going up it's just not a good situation. If you got people selling stocks and selling bonds, that means money is going straight to cash. And by the way, I think money is going straight to cash. Yesterday, money market funds, $38 billion added last week. We have now a record $7.86 trillion on the sidelines, which, obviously means that some people are definitely scared. And quite frankly, if the Fed's not going to cut rates, you can't blame people for putting cash on the sidelines if they're going to get a guaranteed 3.5% federal funds rate. And they don't have to take any risk in the stock market. I mean, the S&P's not up 3% this year. S&P's down 4%. So you can't blame too many people for keeping their money on the sidelines right now. Planet Labs up 30% on the day based on those earnings. Fear and greed is signaling, obviously, that this is the time to buy. We are at 17 on extreme fear. And, once again, my stance on this is very clear. I do not think this is a panic sell, get out of the market and completely run for the hills, because I do think we've been through this story too many times. We went through it with Greenland. Trump says the thing is over. He tacos, we move on. I think this is going to be hard to taco from. Don't get me wrong. This is not an easy situation to get out of, but eventually there will be some resolution, I'm hoping. And as a result of that, markets will be able to price in the upside momentum because of earnings, eventually interest rate cuts, and probably more geopolitical stability. It just has become a lot harder to imagine that scenario happening sooner, even though I think it is going to happen. In terms of buying stocks, this becomes a question of, again, which names are you comfortable with? Which names do you think are massive opportunities to be excited about? The Mag 7 trading at some of their lowest multiples we've seen over the past 5 years are obviously more safer names to get into. But it's also a question of recognizing that a lot of stocks might just be plagued with the overhang, unfortunately, of the war, no matter how good their growth rates are. And as a result, they might not be able to catch a bid. But then you have some stocks in certain thematics like space that are doing great today. Now, maybe that space thematic is good this week and maybe it's bad next week, because that's how the chop has been for the market. Maybe get a stock like Micron that finally breaks out after great earnings. But if Micron can't break out after good earnings, you can't blame it either, given the price of oil is as high as it is. VG is basically an indicator of stocks going down at this point. Every time VG pumps, the broader market goes down. VG, again, your exposure to natural gas right here. When VG dumps, the market recovers a little bit. And VG is kind of acting like the VIX to some extent. Where is the VIX today? Let's see. I think we're up like 2%. We are up 3.5%. 3.5% on the VIX. Axios, Trump is weighing a ground move on Iran's Karg Island, considering seizing the island with ground troops. Marine expeditionary units are already en route. Pentagon lawyers have consulted the legality of the strategy. Well, that headline is also not going to help the market calm down. Trump refused to say if he would want ground troops or not yesterday. I mean, he said he doesn't want it, but he also kind of caveated by saying I can do whatever I want. You know, I didn't I talk about that yesterday? I randomly mentioned like, what if we? Yeah, who was on the? I think Steve was on the show, and I was like, what if they just take over the island? I mean, like, you can't imagine they're not considering it, given they want to protect the oil infrastructure and they want to get oil prices down. Obviously, Iran is not going to easily let them just take over the island, and that would result in a much bigger confrontation. 599.54 on the S&P as that one continues to take a hit. Kratos is down 2%. UMAC down 11% on the day. The trade desk, that's down. AppLovin's down 3%. Broadcom flipped green a little bit. Gold and silver also had a really ugly day yesterday. Gold and silver right now. Gold is up 1%. Silver is up 0.5. They were both down about 5% yesterday. What about FedEx? They had earnings yesterday. FedEx is up 2%. Let's put up their earnings real quick. And I'm going to go through their transcript and see what they said about the consumer. But FedEx, they beat by 27% on EPS. Wow. 525 versus 413 expected. Revenue was 24 versus 23.4. I mean, that's not a bad earnings by any sense of the imagination. Stock's up about 2% right there. FedEx has had a bit of a struggle along with UPS as Amazon has started to more vertically integrate their orders. NVIDIA getting a little bit of a green candle right there. Tesla just continues to dump 374, but not bad for FedEx. SMCI is down 25. It went from 21 to 23. It was down 30. Now it's down 25. But still down 25 on the day. Do you think the S&P could hit 599? Well, I was having dinner with Jason a couple of days ago, and he said this on the show already, but his target is 5850. 5850 on the S&P for the bleeding to officially be done. That would be a rip the Band-Aid off moment for the S&P. That would be down 15% from here, which would not be pretty. I would imagine NVIDIA goes to 140, Google probably 250. Meta probably low 500s. I mean, Tesla probably 300s if that happens. It would obviously be ugly. I don't think that has to happen given how much pain has persisted already, and given if we fall 5%, which we have to fall 5% before we fall 15%, I think that would start to really weigh on Trump and he would try to do something. But obviously, if oil stays elevated, like this is just, there's no world in which oil being elevated. I know Tom Lee came out and said, well, oil being up is good for the country. I disagree with that. I don't know how anyone could see that line of logic and think it makes sense. Oil being up is not good for anybody. It's just not. It's not even good for the oil companies because they have to sell the oil. And if you don't have enough buyers for the oil because the price is too high, they can't make a profit. So this thing's got to come down. Trump knows it has to come down. It's just a matter of time when it does. And at this point, I feel like the only strategy is waiting and seeing until it plays out. Now, if you genuinely are bearish, but you don't want to sell everything, buy some puts on the S&P, right? Like, or buy some puts on a stock that you think is super high beta and is going to get hit really bad if the S&P falls 15%. That is another way to hedge against the downside. And you should be okay if we rally because that hedge goes to zero and, you know, your long stocks go up. But it is not crazy, in my opinion, for people to be buying protection here. Now, protection costs a lot of money. We looked at the put skew on the S&P 500, given everyone is getting bearish, and the put skew is the highest in 5 years on the premiums that you're paying for the puts. But, you know, that might be one way to easily sleep at night with a massive long position on the broader market. Apple loses 250, 247 here. 247. Where is Iran? Iran is up 1.2%. That actually went green. Nebius also going green. So the Neo Clouds showing some strength. CoreWeave is also up 1.76. So the Neo Clouds, along with the space names, showing a little bit of love. Or what is this? Oracle's down 3, but the Neo Clouds are up. I expected Oracle to be up if Nebius, Iran, and CoreWeave are up. What the hell is going on here? That's weird. Micron is about to go green, but still red. S&P still down 0.36%. On the day, again, just a very weird way that the market is playing out. Yeah, the data center's green doesn't make sense without Oracle going green. Like, why are the Neo Clouds getting a bid right here when the most important cloud, which is Oracle, isn't getting some love? Meta below 600. Again, I think Meta has been cheap all year. I'm pretty sure a lot of us think that Meta is cheap. The only problem is if the reason the stock is down is because Zucks is delaying his avocado model, which again feels a bit ridiculous because the ad business is the story on Meta, not the AI model business, because you know they're quite frankly not winning in that part of the AI ecosystem. Then the stock once again has been re-rated to the narrative that it was at before the earnings, which is that unless they show the street they're doing something in AI outside of ads, the street's not going to care. which I think is crazy given how fast they're growing at their level. But I mean, they are spending a lot of money on CapEx, and the street wants more return than just advertising. So I get it, but it does feel a bit unfair for Meta. Meta right there below 600. Palantir 152.80, and then Robin at 72.75. VIX is still up 3.3% on the day. Microsoft as well. This one's been getting hit all year. It is officially in a bear market, 384, leading all the software names down. Trump tweet just now, without the USA, NATO is a paper tiger. They didn't want to join the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran. Now that fight is militarily won with very little danger for them. They complain about the high oil prices they are forced to pay, but they don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz, a simple military maneuver that is the single reason for the high oil prices. So easy for them to do with little risk. Cowards in all capital letters, and we will remember. Okay, so you got Trump coming out saying that his NATO allies are cowards for not wanting to help open the Strait of Hormuz. He says it would be a relatively simple military maneuver. And he says the Strait of Hormuz being closed is the single reason for the high oil prices. And he will remember the cowards of his NATO allies. Oil, still at 95. Still at 95 right now, 95.50. It's actually about to flip green on the day. It's 10 cents away from flipping green on the day. Amazon 206.30, that's still down. S&P is still down. Nebius making a move. Iren making a move, and CoreWeave making a move. Again, very weird that the three neo clouds are pumping when the biggest quote unquote neo cloud Oracle is down 3%. Like, that's just weird. Meta now losing 5.99, Microsoft losing 3.84. But I guess the market's rotating into the smaller name. I don't know. That's weird, dude. That does not make sense that Oracle's down and those guys are up. Yeah, Redwire's also up 3% as well. Would you touch SMCI? No. And look, I don't have anything against SMCI, but like my honest opinion here is that if NVIDIA realizes they can't trust SMCI, they're just going to stop contracting SMCI. They're going to give all that business to Dell or HP. There's other, like, servers are a commodity. There's not, like, SMCI is not that special with their liquid cooling technology. So, I just know, like, I just fundamentally, I would let the dust settle a little bit before thinking this one can easily rebound. That headline's a bad headline. Like, that's not just their auditor quit on the company, which was a bad headline a year ago. This is like they're being accused by the Justice Department of smuggling chips into China, and there's a whole case against them. I just don't think you take a risk on that one at the moment. Reddit right here, that one's still below 140. Salesforce also going red on the day. How are the cyber stocks? Good question. CrowdStrike down 4. Okay. Palo Alto down 3. Zscaler down 4. The CrowdStrikes and Palo Altos of the world, your cybersecurity names, are also getting hit. IGV down 2% of the day. I mean, those are technically software names, I guess. ServiceNow as well. Yep, that was down 3%. Wall Street Journal, the U.S. is sending 3 warships to the Middle East. Okay, this makes sense because obviously Trump, I mean, quite frankly, Trump probably just tweeted that right now because he knew the Wall Street Journal was going to put out the headline that they're sending warships to the Middle East because he wants his perspective to be out there, which is that NATO allies are being cowards. So the United States has to send their own military to be able to navigate this. The Pentagon is sending 3 warships and thousands of additional Marines to the Middle East currently at the moment, even as Trump insists he won't put American boots on the ground, according to U.S. officials that came out 5 minutes ago from the Wall Street Journal. Netflix also getting dumped right here. Yeah. 90.95. 90.95. Yeah, this was at 95 yesterday. So this one taking a hit. Meta, 596. Really feeling it right here. Microsoft at 382. All right, so we're sending warships to the Middle East. I think this is going to be part of Trump's strategy to try to get that Strait of Hormuz open in some capacity. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Microsoft 382. Again, today is quad witching day, so volatility was to be expected. S&P lows of the day, 654, but obviously these military headlines will only prolong the war and the perception of oil being higher for longer. 95.30 on WTI crude at the moment. Higher, thanks for the super chat. I think AR and natural gas are starting its bull cycle. Look, I think there's been a lot of talk about the bull cycle for a variety of different commodities that are out there. The only reason I struggle to fully believe there's a bull cycle, I mean, for the past 3 months, people were saying silver, gold, copper, they're starting this massive super cycle. It's like, first of all, they're already up a lot. Second of all, they're being treated as speculative assets now, which is why silver, gold, and copper have been down over the past couple months after they had that massive rally going up to January 30th. They're still up a lot for the past year. So when it comes to natural gas, I think if you think the war will be prolonged for a while, yeah, it's probably starting some level of a super cycle in VG. Next decade, they're going to be great bets. But if Trump tacos, which again, just the history of Trump is that eventually he tries to resolve this stuff soon. This is a little bit harder of a quagmire he's in right now, but eventually, he's going to try to get out of this. I think those names tank because the market immediately shifts out of those commodities and gets back into growth because the growth is there. The earnings growth is there. Like the market wants to be in Meta probably at 18 times earnings, but they can't be because they know that this oil thing is an overhang. And once that overhang is gone, I think we see the rotation. But the question becomes when that happens. I mean, VG has been up 10% every day for the past couple of days and then finished red on like 3 of the last 4 days because there's something that happens in the middle of the day and then oil goes down, natural gas goes down, and then boom, VG goes down. So for traders, it's been amazing. But if you're thinking of it as an investment right here, you just have to have the perspective that LNG is going to be really important in the future, and it's going to be hypercharged by the idea of this war staying longer than what Trump has said it would stay for. NVIDIA loses 177. NVIDIA loses 177. ARM is green, which is nice to see. ARM was at freaking $100 a month ago, so this is nice to see ARM get that boost right here. They did have a great earnings, 136. Nebius, Corey by Ren, all those going green. Again, Oracle being the odd one out. Planet Labs up 31%. Oklo didn't have any revenue on their earnings last week, but that stock is green, up 3.4%. It is down a decent chunk for the year. Remember, Oklo was at $198 back in October. Now it's at 50, but it is green today. S&P 654. Where's the quantum names? D-Wave's down another 2.6%. D-Wave year to date is down 44%. IONQ's down 2%. IONQ year to date is down 33%. All right, so your quantum names have not had the best year. Again, 2025 was pretty good for them. And obviously, if you bought them in 2023, 2024, you're doing very well. But those names, nuclear names, and some of the space names have taken a hit since the beginning of January. The photonic stocks, are those holding up today? Lumentum is down 4%. Coherent is down 4%. AAOI is down 4%. I mean, again, these names have also had a massive run, just like the quantum names. So, them not rallying 5% every day is not that crazy. But obviously, a lot more people are interested in the optics ecosystem right now. And Jensen did talk about optics, and so did a bunch of other people at GTC. So, those names definitely got a lot of praise and momentum in terms of the overall excitement that they will play in the industry. Question is, how big can they become as supply chain bottlenecks inside of the overall AI ecosystem? And, a lot of people are thinking they're the next memory. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Memory fabs take years to set up. Optic fabs do not take years to set up. I think there's a little bit more of a structural problem with being able to bring memory on supply. But, the market will ultimately dictate what those earnings look like. Micron right there, down 1.4% of the day. The 10-year continuing to pump, man. It's not good. 4.342 on the 10-year. Got some NVIDIA news. NVIDIA confirms 1 million GPU deal with AWS through 2027. NVIDIA will supply 1 million GPUs to AWS in a multi-year agreement. Deliveries will begin in 2026. AWS is also adopting Grok chips. Wow. Alongside NVIDIA GPUs for inference workloads. That's why NVIDIA bought Grok. Multi-chip strategy aimed at optimizing AI inference efficiency highlights massive hyperscaler demand for AI infrastructure. That's not pumping NVIDIA or Amazon at the moment. Hollis says there's a photonic quantum computing company going public next week via SPAC. Hollis, you have the ticker on that? He says it's Xanadu. Xanadu. Yeah, let me know if you have the ticker on that. Photonic quantum computing company. That'll get some excitement. SATL, is that moving up? Satellogic. Palantir actually has to deal with these guys. This was one of the first deals I covered back in 2022 with Palantir. Satellogic, that's up 18%. I don't think they had any headline, right? I think this is just space. This is just Planet Lab earnings pumping everything, or did Satellogic do something? Oh, they had earnings on March 19th, which was yesterday. Revenue, they beat by 2 million. Net income, okay, that's where they're getting the growth. So the street expected a loss of 70 million. They came in at 30 million positive. Well, it was a great time for them to deliver these earnings because the space names are already in a lot of favor right now. So there you go. That'll definitely get this one moving. EchoStar as well got added to the S&P 500. So you have had the space names getting, a lot more excitement as well. IGV still down. What's going on with CrowdStrike? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Oracles of the world either. I mean, I guess you chalk it up to maybe Oracle's down because it's in IGV and the neoclouds aren't in IGV. Oracle technically is like a software name still. And maybe it just can't escape the out. Well, Nebius just went red. Iran just went red. CoreWeave is the last one holding on right here. Meta 594. They are taking Zuck's company to the shed right here. They are not letting him get. I mean, dude, this thing was at 650 last week. Like it was pumping. Or at least it was holding between that 640, 650 range, even if it wasn't like, making a move to 700. And in 1 week, that's down. NVIDIA loses 176 right here, down 1.5%. Google, 301.81. That is also down. Why are you guys saying Chuck Norris passed away? Is that real? Or are you guys actually lying? Okay, the only headline I have is that Chuck Norris was rushed to the hospital. I don't have the headline that he's actually passed away. If you are posting that, please, I hope you're not lying or messing around with someone's death. Yeah, I don't see any headlines that he's actually died. But everyone on Twitter is saying they saw a post that said, okay, so whatever post you guys saw that said, wait, hold on, does TMZ have it? Oh, no, TMZ has it. Yeah, he actually, okay, so yeah, he is, dead at 86. Official from TMZ. I mean, if you trust TMZ, that's the source I have. Yeah. He was hospitalized yesterday, and today he is. That's what I'm looking at. If TMZ is correct, then that is unfortunately true. Rest in peace to Mr. Chuck Norris here. Yeah, looks like that is confirmed. We'll see if we can get some more sources on that, but TMZ confirming that to be true right now. Ugly day across the board in a variety of different ways. Yeah, that's why the market's tanking, to be honest. That's actually why the market's tanking. NVIDIA's still down, Meta's still down, Micron's still down. Who's buying the Micron dip? Are people buying it or no? Are people actually interested in buying this thing? Or are people just saying, you know what, it has a low PE for a reason at this point? What dip? Okay. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say dip. But this thing pumped to 475, and that's why I'm saying at 437, that's a dip technically. But you're right. It's up 50%. I mean, I really shouldn't be saying dip because it's been up this whole year. Meta, 593. This one's just a straight line down. SMCI down 27. Microsoft down 2. SPY loses 653. Low of the day, baby. You know what I need to do? I need to bring the soundboard back. We had the soundboard for like a few months. And then something went wrong in my settings, and I just never brought it back. I need to bring the soundboard back. And when we have a low of the day, we need a certain sound for it. We need to commemorate these moments of red with different sounds. Red Cat's down 5. ASTS down 1.24. Traders price in a 50% chance of a Fed rate hike by October. Let me go to the Fed Watch tool. Dude, if we hike rates, oh my goodness, that's right. Oh my goodness, there is now a 50% chance. Oh my God. Could you imagine what Trump would do when he hears that his Federal Reserve Chair pick is raising interest rates?
I mean, just the humor of that alone would be worth paying for, just to see how he would react. And the worst thing is, Kevin Warsh would have to be like, oil prices are up. There's nothing we can do. We have to hike. And then it goes back to the American people saying, well, why are oil prices up? Because we're in a war in Iran. And then it's a question of, all right, do you blame Trump for the war? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be at the voting booth in the midterms. Who blames who for the oil prices and the rate hikes? And if it comes down to the war in Iran is why people have to pay an extra 50 basis points on auto loans and credit card loans and student loans, etc. And then if the stock market tanks because interest rates go up and everyone's 401ks are not thriving anymore, I mean, it turns into a disaster. Now, again, 50 basis points feels a bit aggressive. I don't think that traders are pricing that in because they have to. I don't think that's going to take place, but who knows if oil still is at 95 by October? I mean, who freaking knows? Those PPI numbers were not good. The day I missed the market open and I saw that PPI, I could not believe how bad those numbers were. And it becomes like a 2024 scenario where we're fighting inflation every time we have this meeting. Zeta right there, down about 2% as well. Tesla, is that one still getting hit? Powell was also a Trump pick. Yeah, that's fair. Powell was also a Trump pick. It's just, at some point that relationship went sour. You would hope the Kevin Warsh pick is at least somewhat intact. Tesla right there, 371. We haven't seen Tesla here. When's the last time we saw Tesla 371? Oh my. September 10th. September freaking 10th, guys, was the last time we saw it at 370. The last time we even got close to that was November 14th at 382. Obviously, we've been hitting the 380s over the past couple of days. This is the lowest Tesla has been in 7 months. In 7 freaking months. Bitcoin 69. Bitcoin's actually holding up nicely, given how ugly things have been. The 10 years at 4.35. It's basically at 4.4 if you round up, which is not good. We'll see if it actually touches 4.4, but 4.352 at the moment right now. How's your red eye? I sat in the middle. There were 4 seats in the middle, and the seat next to me, no one sat for like 20 minutes. And I was like, dude, I'm going to have 2 seats. And then someone came. And I was like, well, I'm not going to have 2 seats. So, yeah, it was okay. I actually tried watching a movie. I downloaded Casino on Netflix with Robert De Niro. And I watched like 20 minutes of it. It was actually very interesting, but then I fell asleep. But I actually want to finish the movie. So it definitely caught my attention for those 20 minutes. But the freaking Wi-Fi wasn't working either, bro. Like, I thought I would just stay up all day, all night and be on my phone. And it was like, United was like, our Starlink connection is lost somewhere in space. So you can't buy Wi-Fi. And I was like, how did you guys lose the connection? So that part was annoying. But outside of that, yeah, that was my red eye. I wish the S&P would tank already. I kind of also agree ripping off the Band-Aid would be nice, but it kind of feels like one of those potentially multi-month sagas where it's just not going to be ripped off that easily. It's not going to be ripped off that easily. Were there any flight delays or lines with TSA strike? So in SFO, there were no delays at all. SFO was phenomenal. In Newark, it was really bad. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that in LAX, it's really bad. So for those coming to the meetup in LA, which by the way, you'll get an email this weekend if you bought a ticket and signed up. Again, link is in the description with all the details and information and the itinerary. But if you are traveling to the LA meetup, probably get to the airport, an hour earlier than you think you need to get to, because LA is pretty bad. But SFO was not too bad. Wall Street Journal, Iran says strikes have failed to halt its weapons production. Iran says strikes have failed to halt its weapons production. Well, obviously Iran is going to say that, right? Because they don't want to say that we're not producing weapons. But I think the big thing about Iran is their resiliency here and how much they have not been willing to negotiate with the United States or Israel on capitulating. I mean, the new Ayatollah probably is ready to fight for a long time, and he doesn't care how many people have to die in order to keep fighting, which begs the question, do we get boots on the ground? Which I really don't think Trump wants to do. But I don't know how else we resolve this without doing that. I mean, airstrikes are only so effective And if we do put boots on the ground, I think that's where you get the actual drop in the market, because then the market's like, oh, it's happening. Like it's legit happening. There's no chance of a taco anymore. So that would be devastating, I think, once that's announced. But I really don't think Trump's going to go there. And I hope I'm right. I don't think he's going to go there. But if he does, the market is going to have to price that in. Why would they? Well, if it comes down to regime change, I think that would be it. But I think Trump's also moved on from regime change. He doesn't even talk about it anymore. Now he's just focusing on the whole nuclear threat, which is good because he's like shifting the focus from like the mission being regime change, because he knows it's probably not that practical to actually, change the regime at the moment. And eventually the market might price that in when it comes to oil prices as well. Tesla 370. All right, Tesla. Let's see if it can hold this 370 level, 17 cents away from losing 370. Grab as well, getting hit right here. Grab at 364. This stock's down 1%. Nubank, all the international names have been hit. That's down 1%. C Limited has been hit, even though they had a really good earnings. That stock at $80, down from 150 last year. I mean, a lot of your names that are putting up growth are just not getting any premium for that growth. Partly and due to the fact that oil prices going up affects not only all the international names, but it increases the U.S. Supply of, or at least the U.S. value of the dollar as people pile into the dollar, which is not good for the international names either. 99.62 is what you have on the Dixie. Short-term interest rate futures priced in for a likely Fed rate hike in December. Okay, so rate cut has been completely priced out. I said in the morning that in December there was the first rate cut priced in. It looks like, yeah, I'm looking at my screen right here on the Fed Watch tool. It is now completely priced out, and now the hike is priced in for December. October still has a 50% chance. Space names also still holding green. Robinhood just lost 72, but the space names are holding up. Dell's up 4.5%. SMCI still down 26%. Is Tesla putting up any growth? Their energy business is growing. Everything else is not really putting up year-over-year growth when it comes to revenue or EPS in a meaningful way. Look, Tesla's always had a hard valuation to grapple with in a world in which the macro environment is not perfect, or at least close to perfect. The valuation just continues to become tougher to navigate with. So, if you believe in Elon and the sort of abundance of AI ecosystem that he believes in, then long-term Tesla's going to be fine. It's just in the short term, obviously these names are incredibly volatile, and it's very, very tough for them to easily get a premium when the market's ready to completely go in the opposite direction. Micron upgrade to 670 today. The analysts are still pretty bullish on Micron. You're seeing upgrades across the board. I think the highest you have is 750 on Micron. Where is Microsoft? Are we losing 380? Microsoft 384, a little bounce off 382, which is good. S&P, no bounce, basically low of the day. Yes, Chuck Norris has indeed passed away. RIP to Mr. Chuck Norris. But that headline just came across the news about 5 minutes ago. Netflix is also down. ServiceNow down 2%. IGV still down 1.75. Amit, what would make you buy outright puts? That's a great question. I think the problem with getting excited to buy puts right now is that the premiums have spiked and a lot of the downside move has taken place relative to the earnings that have been put up across Q4, which was one of the best quarters for earnings that we've seen since 2021. I think the thing that makes you, well, there's two things. Number one, your personal risk appetite, right? Like if you have a massive long position, if you have $1 million worth of longs and you want to buy, 50,000 worth of puts, if the S&P were to collapse 20%, that 50 grand, I'm just making this up, turns into like, I don't know, 200 grand, right? Or something. The numbers are probably off here, but like if that at least hedges the 200-300 grand you might lose on your million long to some extent, then, that's not crazy. And if you lose the 50, you lose the 50, but at least you keep the million, and, that's the cost of doing business. But I think what would really make me more prone to buy puts is just oil staying up for longer. Like if we go throughout April and oil's at 90, we're talking about 3 to 4 months of inflation data being ugly.
Like, it's just not going to go away unless oil has a massive drawdown back to like 60, 70 bucks, which at this point, with all the refineries getting hit, it doesn't even seem like if we stop the war, that's going to happen overnight. That's going to take some months to take place. Now, the market will probably price that in, and probably stocks will kind of, make a move to go up. But if we get a hawkish Fed, which is the point of inflation data taking months to get through the system based on oil prices being high, you're not going to get your rate cuts. And that doesn't mean the market has to go down, but it definitely means having some protection at that point is important, because God forbid we get the hike. And we saw what happened last time we got a hike in 2022. It wasn't pretty. And, maybe that's when we have to seriously think of getting more protection. But I technically am hedging every week by selling calls, right? We've been talking about this. I mean, the call premiums have been incredible because people keep buying these weekly calls on whether it's NVIDIA or Palantir or Rocket Lab. I'm like, I don't know who's paying all these premiums, but people still have the optimism that NVIDIA is actually going to hit 185 on Friday. It's like, well, that's not happening. Rocket Lab's not hitting 80 today. Palantir is probably not hitting 165 today. Micron's not hitting 470 today. And like, the call premiums are bid up enough where if you're selling it, you can benefit from that volatility. Meta right there, 593. As that is also down. Is gold selling off? Gold is officially going red, 46.10. It was at 45.50 last night. Silver now below 70, down 2%. Calls won't be a good hedge in the actual downside, though. That's why puts are needed. I agree. Calls will not actually protect you unless they're deep in the money if we have like a real bear market. And that's why, yes, puts will be the right strategy there. But we haven't had an actual bear market yet, right? Like again, on the S&P, individual stocks, yes, but S&P is down 4%. So the names that have been stuck in a range, I mean, covered calls have just been an incredible strategy here. It's just, do they break out of the range to the downside? If they break out of the range to the upside, okay, you lose some money on the opportunity cost, but also you can roll out of it. And if we're bullish, then boom, you can, wait a couple months and then sell your shares at a much higher premium and at least make some money off this. If they break down to the downside, yeah, it feels uglier, but at least you're making some money on the way down if you're going to decide to, go long. But puts would be the better strategy right there. NVIDIA, we might lose 175 today, folks. It's down a full 2% right now. It doesn't look like it wants to hold. Ondas down 5.3. S&P is down 5 from the highs. I don't know if it's down 5 year to date. Is it? S&P year to date? 4.6. We're pretty close. We're pretty close from the highs. The highs this year were January 27th. We were at 695. So we're at what? 651. 695 minus 651 divided by 651. We are down 6.3% from the highs. 6.3. Yeah, 6.5. Okay, so actually technically 4% away from a legit correction. 5% is a pullback, 10% is a correction. 4% down from here, 652. That would be 26 points down, which would be 625. I mean, that would be ugly, but I can see it happening. And then I guess the question is, does Trump get annoyed enough and decide to do something about this? But time will tell. Time will tell. VIX just went up 10. Did it? Yeah. Wow. There you go. There's your volatility spike for the day. VIX up 9.93. S&P down 1%. S&P down 1%. Hood's going below 70. It is very possible. 71.59 right here. I mean, all the levels you thought were untouchable have become touchable. At this point, every stock is, I mean, who thought SoFi was actually going below 20 and now it's below 17? I mean, even Apple was holding 260 for a couple weeks. Now it's below 250. But again, every time we've hit these levels, we see a spike back up, even if it's for a couple days. Like, it would not surprise me today if NVIDIA gets back to 178 and Google gets back to 306 and Apple gets back to 252, Rocket Lab now below 70, that gets back to 71. Like, it would not surprise me one bit. And all we can do is sit and watch in the chop of how this is all playing out. Where's the Dow today? Where's the Dow? Trump mentioned the Dow Jones at 50. I said, Dow's down 240 points, 45,000. We are now 5,000 points away
from that Dow 50. Let's get a little bit more coverage on oil and these troops being deployed to the Middle East, and we'll keep going from there.
2011 during the Libyan war. It's great to have you, Michael. What are you hearing? How do you think this resolves, and are we in some sort of final chapter here?
Well, on one hand, a lot of the military objectives have been achieved. Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday that Iran's capability to enrich uranium or to build new missiles have been largely destroyed. Clearly, a lot of the leadership has been eliminated. This now all becomes really about Iran's retaliation and about the Strait of Hormuz, and whether we can get it reopened again and reduce the pressure on the global economy from these increased oil prices. And so Iran's attack on Kuwaiti oil refinery, on Qatari gas hub, all of putting pressure on the global economy. And now the focus is really very much focused on that, on energy, on the Strait, as opposed to what's going on in Iran itself.
How do we do that? How do we degrade their capability so much that they are not able to block the Strait?
Well, we're trying to get all of their drones and all of their missile launchers and their missile capabilities, but they can hide them, they can move them in many cases, and it doesn't take many, particularly given how narrow the strait is, to wreak havoc on ships that might try and pass through. And so that's interesting about sending more troops and more ships to the area is, are we going to try and put troops on the ground, boots on the ground, either at Karg Island and control Iran's ability to export its own oil, or at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz to try and clear out what's remains of the drones and the missiles that might be there.
So once again, I mean, you've got some of these geopolitical guys saying it all comes down to the Strait. By the way, Trump's going to be live in 20 minutes. He's presenting the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. Commander-in-Chief Trophy. I actually don't know what that is. I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with some of the other awards the president gives out. Let's ask Gemini what that is in a second. But Robinhood right here, that's down. S&P 652, little bounce off 651. But yeah, it's coming down to the Strait. All these guys are saying the Strait is what determines the basis for oil prices, which is why Trump just tweeted about the NATO allies that could easily help in the Strait. And now he's pissed that they're not helping. What is the Commander-in-Chief's trophy? I'm assuming this is the Commander-in-Chief trophy is one of the most prestigious prizes in college football. Okay, is this about football? You guys think it's the Navy? Oh no, but it's the Navy, Army, and Air Force football teams. Okay, so this is not going to be like an actual, like he's not giving it to like a legit general or anything like that. We'll see if he does Q&A and if he says anything. Yeah, it sounded like he was going to give the award to himself because he's the Commander-in-Chief, right? But obviously the Commander-in-Chief's trophy is a different thing. All right, so we'll see what he says there. Bitcoin 69.6, CrowdStrike down 4, Micron down 2. SMCI still down 27. Meta at 595. Are you buying the dip on Grab? Yeah. So when I contribute my final 30K into my solo 401k, which is going to be happening in about 2 weeks, all of that's going to be going to Grab. So it'll be like whatever, 8,000 shares of Grab. My entire solo 401k is just Grab. And that is literally my Southeast Asian exposure. Just not going to look at it for the next 4 or 5 years. And that will be my dip buy on Grab. So I will post when I do that. It's probably gonna be like 37,000 exactly. And I'm assuming it'll still be at these prices here. Last time I bought Grab was around 450. So it's been a while. Obviously, look, the name is not getting any love at this point. It's not in the right thematics. It's not in the right ecosystem of acceptability by the street. Oil prices going up is not good for Grab, Uber, any of those companies that obviously rely on driving and traveling and stuff. So it's in a not even in a bad downturn. It's in a bad thematic that's just being discussed. And outside of that, look, I've said this over and over again. As much as I like the name and I care about the name, the stock hasn't worked. And so the reason I don't talk about it every single day is because
not a lot of people care about it. So it is what it is, right? I don't want to bore people talking about something that people don't care about. And until there's any fundamental change in the company, there's nothing to talk about. Like there's literally nothing to say. So you either DCA and hold it long. Again, I bought it last year. I also think we need a reality check. You can't expect a stock to go up in the first year of buying it. Like that didn't happen with Robinhood. That didn't happen with Palantir. That hasn't happened with many names that people have bought before. I know we're so conditioned to see the move, and I don't even think this is an excuse. This is just the reality of we are so conditioned in getting gains so quickly, myself included, even though you forget it takes years to kind of get there, that you lose your patience for it. And that's, that's either you have the patience or you don't. And if you don't have the patience, that is totally fine. But if you do, you kind of just forget about it and keep it there. And then if the thesis fundamentally changes, you readjust. But my thesis hasn't changed at all, which is the most frustrating part. There's nothing about the thesis that has changed. It's just the price action has been horrendous. On copper, my thesis changed pretty quick. Once I saw the price action interact with how silver and gold were at, I was like, okay, so this is just a proxy for silver and gold. This is not something that fundamentally, I know, Druckenmiller is excited about copper and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're not seeing that massive upside breakout in terms of divergence for the demand on data centers with copper, then no, it's not like there's not a thesis there. And so I got out of it. But you either believe that or not at this point. The company is performing 20% growth, 40% EBITDA growth. Like you don't look at those types of numbers and say, oh, that's a company that goes bankrupt, that has $7 billion in cash, trying to get a $9 billion enterprise value. But the market doesn't care. The market cares more about a drone stock trading at 400 times sales because we're in a war right now. And that is more exciting to the market. And who am I to be against the market when that's the thematic that they want to get into? IONQ right there, still down 2%. Satellogic up 20% on the day. Yeah, that's also fair. My thesis on copper was rooted in a trade, not an investment. So there wasn't even an investing thesis that was based on that. Why not buy more NVIDIA over Grab? Well, that's what I've been doing. I mean, quite literally, only Max 7 that I've really been adding to is NVIDIA. It's just in my solo 401k, I'm like, look, I don't even look at that. Like, I don't even touch it. It's like when I have to look at my portfolio every day and you're making adjustments, all that stuff, it's a little tough when you're seeing names that aren't performing. But in your something I don't look at that I do want to be long in an international region, I'm like, you know what? That's where I will have more of my exposure. Don't rising gas prices hurt the company? Yes. I mean, it hurts everyone, but uniquely can hurt the international names. Wow, SanDisk just got an ugly 5% candle. Goodness, that happened almost within a couple of minutes right there. 777 to 729 on SanDisk, as that one is continuing to get a bad hit. Why not just buy SPY in your solo 401k? Because the SPY is boring. Dude, I don't know. I think Grab can double before the SPY doubles. From these levels, I think Grab can go from 360 to 7 before the SPY goes from 650 to 1200. So I don't know. I think it's an easier double, or 1300 would be a double on the SPY. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really do think Grab could be $7 before the SPY doubles. So that's based on my risk tolerance, and that's how I'm allocating it. ServiceNow, that's down 2%. All right, all the memory names actually get, yeah, wow. Okay, something just happened in memory. 430 on Micron. That's a real dump. SanDisk getting a bigger dump. Western Digital. By the way, I met someone who works at, was it Western Digital? Yeah, Western Digital yesterday. And I was like, well, you've had a good year for the stock. He was like, yep. He just started smiling. That stock's down 5.7. What's the other one? Seagate. Seagate is also down 3%. All right, all the memory names at once just dumped. I don't even think there's a headline here. I just think the quad witching is starting to affect individual sectors. And that sector right now is memory. That sector right now is memory. Yes, Coherent is getting into the S&P today. That is also fair. It was announced 2 weeks ago, and Coherent and Light, wow, down 7% today. I guess the S&P is getting some good prices to buy these companies. Lumentum's down 8%. All these photonics plays are just, AAOI is down 9%, just falling off a cliff here. Talking about 7 to 9% on average on all of them. What about Poet? That's also in that world, right? Poet's down 3%. South Korea's down 5%. Seagate, that's down 3.5%.
10-year 3.7. Are you kidding me? Hold on. Or is it 4.3? 4.37, I meant to say. Wow. 4.37. Goodness gracious. It was at 4.352 15 minutes ago. U.S. dollar index extended its gains after the report of the U.S. sending troops to the Middle East. Again, the dollar is basically backed by the military, so Trump's deploying troops. Not only are people going to go to a safe haven, but that's once again reinforcing the value of the dollar, which is, why people are probably piling in. Katrina says, my aunt in Thailand couldn't even get gas today. Stations near her were closed. See, that's not good for Grab. That's not good for Sea Limited. That's not good for any of the international names. And that's honestly probably why the market's right to take a bunch of those names down. Because if that ends up affecting their earnings, what is the company going to say? They're going to be like, well, the president started a war in the United States, and we're a developing nation that is very contingent on oil prices for the cost of business. So there's not much we could do there. And unfortunately, that's affecting pretty much everything. See, I really do think it was the quad witching on all the photonics plays, because Cactus, do you have a headline on Light or Coherent or SanDisk? Because I don't see anything. I don't see anything on Micron either. All I see is these names getting wrecked right here. That absolutely feels like quad witching more than anything. Is Trump live yet? Let's see. Nothing. Okay. The stream is live, but he's not live yet. Let's get a little bit more coverage on this Karg Island headline as well. Let me pull this up, and then we'll switch to Trump whenever he goes live.
At this point, there are still some questions here about exactly how a potential operation would take place, though Axios is reporting that the U.S. would look to degrade Iran's military capabilities around the Strait of Hormuz further before launching any potential operation there. This comes as the disruptions in the Strait continue, and we heard the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just yesterday suggest in an interview that Karg Island could become a U.S. asset. In his words, just for context here, Karg Island ships out about 90% of Iranian crude exports, and imagery analyzed by Bloomberg shows that for the most part, those loadings have continued unabated. Now, there's a few different things that we could be watching here. Of course, we know that last Friday, the U.S. had confirmed that it did hit military targets on Karg Island, prompting President Trump at the time to say, quote, we can take the island anytime we want. The U.S. has sent additional assets to the region recently, including the closely watched 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, a 2,400 troop force that specializes in amphibious operations, amid speculation that this could be used in any potential takeover or blockade of the island. But again, none of this is confirmed at the moment, but it does come as yesterday President Trump said that he is not going to deploy ground troops, though in the same breath told reporters in the room that he wouldn't tell them if he was. And
yeah, Trump's not easily admitting that he's not going to do. Even Netanyahu was asked about ground troops as well, and he basically said no one has the right to tell Israel how they govern themselves, and so, implying that if he wants to put troops on the ground, then he's going to put troops on the ground. I mean, again, if that happens, I don't know if the markets are going to like it, but they're definitely, Netanyahu and Trump, not leaving that out of the potential opportunities or potential considerations that they have. Reddit, is that making a move? Again, all the memory names all fell at once. Wow, Reddit goes green. What market are we in, dude? How does Reddit flip green on the day by 3% while everything else is just getting wrecked? I mean, this is absolutely quad witching stuff. This cannot be real. This cannot be real. Matt Money says, is today the Lambo day? Well, I think not if you have SMCI. There's some account on Twitter that was like, I'm all in SMCI. This investigation is a joke. Nothing's going to happen. I was like, bro, I mean, I've coped before, but it's a pretty serious investigation to say that it's not that big of a deal. 27% down.
on SMCI. Yeah, you know it's bad when Reddit goes green. Planet Labs up 30%. Although I think Reddit is, at its cheapest valuation that it's been in a while. I do think there's a little bit too much excitement about Reddit. I mean, I know people are looking at the forward growth estimates and they're like, this thing is cheap, but it's like, yeah, but Meta is also really cheap. And it's not to compare Meta to Reddit, but people that are like over the moon on Reddit, it's not that special compared to a Meta. Yeah, it's growing faster, but Meta is also worth a lot more, and it's growing pretty fast at 30%. So I think there's a little bit too much crowdthink on this name, even though I like the name. I did a deep dive on it at 230, didn't like the valuation. 143, the valuation is way easier to handle. But I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's going to 210 or 220 like people think, which would be, where the real alpha is. Gonna get back to 150? Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. S&P right there, 650, 294. That one is still down. Today is the first day of spring. That is correct. Today is indeed the first day of spring. Welcome to spring, everybody. Can you guys believe that we're about to be in April in 2026? Like, I know we always say the year has gone by so fast, but man, this year has gone by fast. Like, soon enough, we'll be in June and it'll be summer. It'll be freaking summer for 2026. And the S&P will hopefully, if we're lucky, be at 650 and not below that. Obviously, I would like it to be higher, but at this point, if we could just stay where we are, that'd be nice. I mean, dude, if we could avoid a 2022 scenario where we have that prolonged 19% drawdown, like, I'd be okay with a 4% down year. It is what it is. It is what it is. Like in 2022, we started really going down. Oh, this is ugly. Okay, this chart, I mean, we started really going down in April. Started really going down in April. So 2022, we topped in January 28th. Or sorry, basically January 7th, that week, 470. And then we held up. We had some dips along the way. April was actually where we recovered from the March lows, 420 to 447. And then by the end of April, we were at 412. And then by May, we got to 389. And by June, 365. And then we went all the way up. And then we came right back to that in October. So from June, we went from 360 to 422. And then October, we bottomed at 360 again. So if it does play out like it did in 2022, we are, going to have to survive April. And hopefully, not really see that kind of sell and may go away type of spirit. But obviously that is something that is very possible. Matt says a 4% down year and we just print on covered calls. Yes. Like, dude, I hate sounding like a broken record, but I really do think it's a good strategy, bro. Like, it's working. Like, it's not been a good year, but I mean, like, this week I'm printing $30,000 on covered calls, $33,267. That's not a bad week, bro. That is not a bad freaking week. Okay. $33,000. Now I'm probably down this week more than 33, but 33 grand to run some calls and give some gamblers the opportunity to buy NVIDIA calls at 185 and for it to just not go there even after GTC. It's not bad. That's not bad. So to me, Robinhood stuck in a range, NVIDIA stuck in a range, Microsoft stuck in a range, Tesla a little bit more volatile but stuck in a range, Coinbase stuck in a range, Nubank stuck in a range. Nubank doesn't have horrible premiums. Like, it is not crazy to take advantage of that. It's not crazy. Again, doesn't help the overall pain that we're seeing across the board, but it's also not insane to see a little bit of that momentum. Covered calls are good if you have a large account. What about people with smaller account? If you have a smaller account and you need to grow it, and in this market environment, stocks aren't going up, it's the same thing, right? If you're working with $10,000 and you can make an extra couple hundred a week, it's the same as if you're working with $1 million and you can make a couple extra thousand a week. It's on a different scale, obviously, because of the actual number of dollars, but it is still the same idea, which is whether it's 10,000 or a million, if you're in a stock that is stuck in a range, it's not going up. So the only thing you can do is get into a stock that is going up, which again requires finding that stock and hoping that you're in the right theme for the, if you thought it was Micron this week before earnings, you're down. If you thought it was VG at 16 yesterday, you're down. If you thought it was VG at 9, you're up. But like that, that depends on timing. So if you can't do anything, you might as well sell the call. I don't think that's the worst idea. Yeah, the percentage ultimately ends up being the same. Brendan says on track to make 115K this year in covered calls. I had lunch with Elaine yesterday. You guys know Elaine. I've talked about her in the past. She has 70,000 shares of Palantir. She went pretty heavy in 2022. She's averaging 60,000 a month on covered calls. And she's doing a delta that is very conservative, because when you have 70,000 shares, you don't have to do, 155 strikes if the stock's at 154. You can do 170 and still make a lot of money. So I just think this is one of the best strategies this year if the market is going to be stuck. And unfortunately, right, January was the time to load up on some of these broader sector thematics that have made a move. But realistically, the only two sectors I've seen that have made a massive move this year, that if your portfolio was super heavily levered into it, you've had an amazing year, is memory and then photonics. And then let's call energy as well, oil. But you had to get the timing right on those. And you had to bet on a lot of these companies when they were very small market caps, especially in the photonic space. I mean, you're not like taking a risk on a $50, $60 billion company. You think everything's normal. You had to bet on these companies when they were like 800 million, 900 million. And just not the average retail investor is not going to go buy some sub-billion dollar stock because they have a thesis on the AI supply chain. Some people will, and that's totally fine. But the majority of people are going to be in the names they understand, like a Rocket Lab, like a Robinhood, like a Tesla, like a C Limited, like a Zscaler, like a Meta. And all those names have unfortunately shit the bed this year. Outside of photonics, energy, and you have to be right on the timing of energy, and memory. And if you got into memory anytime over the past week, you're down, right? If you got in January, you're up. So, can we have a bull market where 3 sectors have done well and everything? I should also mention the value stocks, the Verizons, the Cokes of the world. Those are up 15, 20%. I should mention that. But again, most retail investors don't have the risk appetite to invest in Verizon. So if you're not in those 3 sectors and you're in the names that we all talk about and those names have done nothing, then I feel like the covered call is the strategy. Matt says, I'm selling Rocket Lab covered calls at premiums that are a large percentage of my entire cost basis, getting $2 per contract when I was buying the stock for $3.50. Yeah, and if you're someone like Matt or an Elaine that has a massive position in these companies that you've been building for years, you're able to use the cost basis that you have. I think Elaine's average is like $10, $15, right? Those are 70,000 lottery tickets at this point. To be able to navigate how you run the covered call strategy. Now, if the market goes crazy and rips, you also have to be okay with getting some of those shares get called away or being in a really tough situation with rolling it, which happened to a lot of people after Liberation Day last year. But does it look like the market is ready to pull a V-shaped recovery Liberation Day? My gut reaction is no, because this war isn't ending anytime soon. And if you think it is, then you don't run the covered call. But if it's not, at least there's some level of income you're generating before it all takes a hit. Okay, is Trump live? Let me see. Is Trump live? Trump is still not live yet. He is still not live. He is still not live. He's going to be doing this presentation. Still not live yet. 10-year is still spiking. 10-year 4.38. It's just ticking up 0.1% every 10 minutes. At some point, it's going to go to 4.4. This is going to be very ugly, but 4.38 on the 10-year. S&P 652. VIX is still up about 10% on the day. Next Era Energy receives approval from Donald Trump to develop up to 10 gigawatts of natural gas powered generation to meet nation's historic power demand. NEE stocks flat, not getting any love, but I would say that's relatively bullish. Next Era Energy flat on the day. Is that stock up year to date? Next Era Energy, SMCI is still down. That stock's up 14%. Yeah, another energy name that again has done well.
Do you use Robinhood to buy covered calls? Okay, so first of all, it's not buying; it's selling covered calls. It's very important to understand the terminology on it. But yes, I use Robinhood. I'm linking a video in the chat. This is a 3-hour, I guess you could call it like workshop I did on covered calls. Do not pay to learn this stuff. It's free. You don't need to pay for it. After you watch this video, take some notes, ask ChatGPT some questions. You will become an expert literally in a couple of days. I'm so serious. It's not that complicated. It's important to understand all the nuances to it, but it's really not that complicated. And I don't want to spend time like explaining every little minutia of the details here, but yes, it's possible on any brokerage, and everyone can utilize strategy. So I'd watch that over the weekend. I really would. I think it will be really good. By the way, we'll get TJ on the show on Monday. TJ hasn't been on the show in a while. TJ was one of the mentors who helped me understand selling options 2 years ago. And he will be on the show on Monday. So we'll get to talk to him as well about the strategy. Yes, you can do the same in IBKR. You can do the same pretty much on every brokerage. Do you need a certain amount of shares? Yes, you need 100 shares to be able to do this. Again, the video will go into depth on the details and help people understand this stuff. Why is Red Cat red? Well, Red Cat ended up not being profitable on their earnings. That's why that stock is down 6.7%. Now, it is in the war theme and the drone theme. The stock is up year to date pretty heavily, right? Yeah, 50% year to date. So again, you can't be too upset that it's down 20% on earnings on a lack of profitability expectation. But, you know, it's in that theme. And so if there's a big purchase order for drones that are coming in anytime soon, yeah, you're going to see Red Cat and those other names probably catch a bid. But again, would I buy Red Cat at 14? I've got to be certain. Forget even on the fundamentals, but on the thematic continuing. And I just think it's tough as a retail investor to just switch from theme to theme. Like, that's not how most people have a job, a wife, kids, right? They're navigating. Like they can't just full port photonics, then full port energy, then full port Reddit, then full port. Like, that's just not realistic for most people. So if you're full porting Red Cat here because you think they're going to get a bunch of drone orders, it's like, well, the stock's already made a move this year, 50%. Same thing with memory, right? Micron up 50%, even though those earnings deserve the stock to be like $500 in my opinion. You know, can you effectively transition the portfolio from theme to theme and time it in a way that actually is profitable? It's just not easy to do that. And that's why I'm skeptical on, you know, trying to transition in each of those different sectors. Yeah, I mean, if you full ported VG in December, that's worked out really well. But, you know, not everyone did that. Also, not everyone saw an entire. I mean, look, VG, I think inevitably was going to do well over time. I think the thesis on it is very sound. But obviously, something hyper accelerated the necessity for LNG, which is this war. If you didn't expect a war was coming, you know, you probably didn't have a level of necessity to be like, yep, I need to lever up on this. Let's get the update on SMCI. That stock's still down 27% here.
On record as employees are charged with smuggling chips into China. Christina Partsinevelos is here with the story. It's a wild one, Christina.
Yes, involving dummy servers, a hair dryer, and billions of dollars in NVIDIA chips headed to China. That is the alleged scheme federal prosecutors just laid out last night, charging 3 people tied to server maker Supermicro, including co-founder and board member Walid Lia, with conspiring to illegally divert AI servers to China in violation of U.S. export controls. Supermicro builds high-performance servers that include NVIDIA chips. The scheme supposedly ran from 2024 to 2025, routing servers through a Southeast Asian middleman, repackaging them in unmarked boxes that you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, and then shipping them to China. The defendants allegedly staged thousands of fake non-working servers in case auditors came knocking. What you're seeing on your screen now are those fake servers. They were also caught on surveillance camera using a hair dryer. You can see the woman in the holding a red hair dryer on the right side of your screen to swap labels and serial numbers. $510 million worth of servers were diverted in a single 6-week window just last spring. NVIDIA is not accused of any wrongdoing here. The company says unlawful diversion of its chips is a, quote, losing proposition. Supermicro, on the other hand, says it's not named as a defendant in this, calling the conduct a contravention of its own policies. 2 employees have been placed on leave. The contractor...
SMCI is so guilty. NVIDIA's like, we didn't know what was happening. SMCI is like, well, you know, we have some bad apples in the bunch. I mean, this is crazy, bro. I'm not touching this name. I'm sorry. I'm not touching this name.
has been terminated. Two of those employees are also arrested. One is at large, a fugitive. But analysts just aren't letting Supermicro off the hook easily, and neither are investors, pointing to the company's 2018 delisting over accounting issues, as well as EY's surprise resignation as auditor back in 2024. Raymond James calling it, quote, a bad look, and Bernstein asks if they need to, quote, add a smuggling line to our Supermicro revenue build. The question now, though, is how deep the compliance failures go and whether current CEO Charles Liang, that you can see just hugging Jensen Huang a few days ago at GTC, and he's known for close.
I didn't know he was at GTC. That's awkward. That is very awkward. And that's why Dell, their competitor, is up 5% right now.
Closely managing his business, how much he knew more than the company is letting on. Supermicro shares are down roughly 28% this morning. Dell, though, the most direct competitor in AI servers, as you can see, is up about 5%, with analysts flagging it as the most immediate beneficiary of Supermicro's customer relationships. Take a hit, guys.
Christina, we're reminded of the fact that there are periodic reports that NVIDIA products are getting into China somehow. Is there any sense of whether this was a principal channel? Was it an open secret? Did it come as a shock to NVIDIA and everybody else?
Yes. So NVIDIA told me that they didn't know about this. The chips are not with them, not in their facility. You have Supermicro that takes the chips and pieces it into their server, so they can't track it. There's no tracking capabilities. But to your point, just last February, there were 3 Singaporean men that were arrested for the same reason. They were smuggling NVIDIA chips into China. So there clearly is an ongoing issue. NVIDIA is now offering a specialized open source AI software. I think it's called Fleet something. It's brand new. And it's not necessarily for tracking, it's for checking the health of their GPUs. So once the GPU is turned on, you can check the health. But at the same time, when you're checking the health, you'll know exactly where the location is. So far, we'll see customers actually take on. Maybe those that are trying to skirt the law aren't going to want this software because they want to, pretend that, like, I don't know where my GPUs are. I can't track them. But clearly, the value of these chips still is very important to China if they keep getting smuggled in.
Chips are the new gold. It's a crazy story.
Oil.
Thank you, Christina.
Oil as well. Yeah.
Such a crazy story, dude. I wonder if the put skew on SMCI was heavy yesterday. Let's actually take a look at it. Let's go to SMCI. Let's look at the volume of puts. I feel like someone had to know this was coming, right? Someone had to know. March 20th, right? Today. Open interest on the puts. Calls strike. Let me pull up the puts. It's not that aggressive. It's like 20,000 compared to the calls, like 25,000. Yeah, it's relatively basic. It would be funny though if someone had like a lot of puts just loaded up, knowing dude, a stock going down 20. Buying puts on Thursday in the morning for a stock going down 30% by the afternoon. You can make thousands of percents of gains in a day if you time it correctly, or at least hundreds of percents. Because that type of move happening intraday is like those puts have to go up in volume or in value. And so, maybe someone made some good money off this, but this stock down 27%, 108 million shares have been traded today on SMCI, $13 billion market cap. Now, Zeta flipping green on the day. Is Trump live, guys? He is not live yet. They are still late. This is not officially started live, but he probably will be up soon. The memory name's still down, by the way. Seagate down 3, SMCI down 27, Coherent down 8, Western down 5, SanDisk down 7. SanDisk went up to 750 this week, or 770. Microsoft 384, and then Micron still down as well. SEDG is up. SolarEdge is up 16% today. Why the hell is SolarEdge up 16% today? What the hell did they do? By the way, S&P, or not S&P, 10-year 4.382. She is inching her way up to 4.39. And then we're looking at 4.4. SolarEdge, what's the headline? I don't see anything. Shares of SolarEdge increase after Jefferies adjusted its rating on the stock from underperform to hold. That's it. They got an upgrade. That's it. 16% for solar.
Dude, could the market rotate into solar if energy is that the thesis? Enphase is up 1%. I mean, yeah, I guess oil going up is giving solar a bit. I guess so. Solar Edge 14% right there on only 4 million shares of volume. Not a ton. Amit, while selling the weeklies, are usually waiting for a green day during the week or just selling them on Monday, regardless of the green or red day. So usually I wait for some level of green because you want to capture, the most premium you can. So I sold it in 2 sets. I sold it right before GTC this week on NVIDIA, and then I sold it 2 days after GTC when we had a spike. Some of it is just pure luck. I mean, you're never going to find the absolute top to sell the covered call. But, whatever you can get during a week in this market, whether it's the absolute most amount of premium or I'm just happy given range. It's not just NVIDIA. It's a lot of different names. I just think NVIDIA is the best on a risk reward basis because we know it's fundamentally no interest in multiple on NVIDIA. It's not I think there is somewhat of a floor. But I think there's a floor, and the premiums are always great because it's the world's biggest. And it has stayed within a range because NVIDIA is not breaking out to 200 until the bottom marker is ready to break out. Top that you can play within that. So, and it is liked by the brokerages when you're running covered calls because the brokerages love when you're running strategies on safe stocks, Amazon, Google, NVIDIA, Apple. If you do it on like BNR or SoFi, they're not considered safe in those brokerages, right? So when it comes to maintenance requirements, you just have to be able to make sure that if those stocks do fall, the brokerages are still okay. You being derivatives on those names. Why did the audio go down? Hold on. Yeah, are we back? Are we back? Yes. How long was I yapping? How long was I yapping? Yes, no? Yes. It's still bad. All right, we're just going to go Trump. We're just going to go Trump.
Officially present the Commander-in-Chief's trophy to the one and only Navy midshipman football team with 11 wins and 2 losses, playing the best teams in football. I used to always think of the military service as they play like a little step below. It's not true. They play the big teams and they beat them. These players achieved one of the most impressive seasons in Navy football history and any football history, frankly. And I just want to congratulate the midshipmen. I met them backstage and they're great. Thank you. Congratulations. When I mentioned.
Okay, is it better now? Dude, how long was I yapping? Was that like 2 minutes of like just not looking at the chat? I was looking at the. Let me know if it's better now. It should be better.
The Navy that we just destroyed, I said, are they good ships? Yeah, they're great ships. Then I said, why didn't we save them? We could have used them ourselves. They said the difference was they didn't know how to use them, right, General? They didn't know how to use them. They had no idea. But I want to recognize Navy Athletic Director Michael Kelly, who has just done an incredible job. Thank you very much. Looks like a Kelly. He's definitely a Kelly, along with head coach Brian Newberry, fantastic coach, Brian. He's off to the second best start for any football coach in school history. What's second? Who's first? It's pretty good. That must have been a Roger Staubach year, maybe, or something, huh? Because I tell you what, I got to watch Roger Staubach, and he was something. It was like, I had to say, I've said it, and some people were insulted by it, but it was like a man playing with children. He would single-handedly win those games. It was incredible. Thanks as well to your superintendent, Lieutenant General Michael Borg-Schulte, who is an accomplished Navy linebacker, a very good one. Back in the day, we're also pleased to be joined by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said, no, I don't know, Pete's here because I actually told him he had an option, be in the sit room, you know, the famous situation, or be up here. And if it's okay, I told him, but I think he has two very beautiful sons up here to the best, Boone and Jackson. Are you two guys? Well, I told your father, just be in the situation room. We're okay with that, right? I think so, right, Coach? Coach, I think you're okay. So Boone and Jackson, someday you'll be on this team maybe, right? Would you be a Navy, Army, Air Force? Which one? Take Navy. Just say Navy, okay? I don't want to get them in trouble. And your father's doing a fantastic job. And also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane. So Dan is unbelievable. And I picked him for a reason because I was told it would take 5 years to beat ISIS by our television generals. You know, there's a big difference between generals, just like there is between coaches and everything else. They said, sir, 5 years. And I went to Iraq because I didn't understand why 5 years. And I met this general, and his name was Dan Kane. I said, what's your name? He said, Raisin, sir. I said, really, Raisin? What is that? Raisin. Oh, it's just my nickname, sir. What's your last name? Kane. I said, your name's Raisin Kane? I love you. You're the guy I'm looking for. And it turned out to be right. So they told me it was going to take 4 to 5 years to knock out ISIS. And now I'm in Iraq. I come down, I meet him, some other generals. He was the boss. And I said, how long would it take for you to knock out ISIS? He said, 4 weeks, sir. I said, 4 weeks. They tell me 4 years, maybe 5. He said, well, whatever they want, sir. They're the boss. I'm just here. But you can do it in 4 weeks, sir. And you'll have time left over. I said, you got to be kidding. And he explained, and we went through a whole big thing. Well, nobody in this room would be bored by it. Actually, you'd like to hear every word. I tell you every word of it. But bottom line, I said, let me go back. But as I'm leaving, it was very interesting. I'm walking down the stairs, long fight. I had to turn off the lights after spending trillions of dollars. You had to turn the lights off in the plane because you didn't want to be spotted by the enemy. This was something. So we land. And he said, sir, would you like to rest for a while before we have a meeting? I said, I don't have to rest. My name's not Biden. I don't want to, I'm not resting. And we had great meetings. And then I got back on the plane. I said to him, so General, you say 4 weeks. We mean that, right? 4 weeks, sir, and you'll have time left over. He said, I'll call you on Monday when I get back. And I called him. I said, you still feel that way, General? He said, yes, sir. And I let him do it. He did it in less than 4 weeks. He defeated ISIS. It was amazing. What a difference. You know, I always say, what a difference the president makes. The border. They said, it can't be done without Congress. It will take years. We did it in about 3 weeks. We have a border that's now 9 months in a row. Nobody's come into our country illegally. I'm not even sure if that could be right. But the Democrats keep the stats. So they say, I mean, they have 0 people came in through our border. You see it, right? And I said, the president makes a big difference. Well, the generals make a big difference too. But I told him, I said, Dan, if you don't mind, stay in the situation room and you watch all those attacks that we're hitting those guys with, and they don't know what's happening. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is all gone, it's all gone. Their radar is all gone. Their leaders are all gone. The next set of leaders are all gone. And the next set of leaders are mostly gone. And now nobody wants to be a leader over there anymore. We're having a hard time. We want to talk to them, and there's nobody to talk to. We have nobody to talk to. And you know what? We like it that way. And we have many other distinguished members of the United States military, but I want to tell you, Hegseth is doing a great job. And Raisin Kane is doing a great job, as good as anybody's ever seen. Don't forget, we had Venezuela. That was the beginning where people started to see the talent. I rebuilt the military and built it, frankly, including Space Force. But I rebuilt the military in my first term. I didn't think I'd be using it this much, but I'm glad I rebuilt it because we can't let these lunatics have nuclear weapons because they were going to use them. They'd use them fast. One of the ways you know that is when this whole thing started, they started shooting missiles all over the Middle East at countries that were basically not involved because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. The only question would have been the first hour, the first day. That's the only question. They would have used it. And if they can use a nuclear weapon, the world would have been in big trouble. We had to stop. It should have been done long ago. I also want to thank FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, perhaps the most powerful man in this room. You are doing some job. He's trying to keep the fake news, he's trying to make the fake news real and respected again, which is not an easy job, but you're doing a really amazing job. First time that's happened in 25 years. So I congratulate you and everybody in the room. Everybody in this whole country is watching what you're doing, and we appreciate it. When a man can get elected in a landslide, winning think of it, 7 swing states, win them all. We win the popular vote. We win the electoral college by tremendous amount. We win the counties by 82 or 84%. And I got no good press. Think of it. Only one thing. That only means one thing. These people are not respected. They're just not respected. And we have to have a press that's respected. When you can win an election where they say that I got 94% bad press, think of it. The other side got 94% good press. When they can get 94% and you win in a landslide, that means the press is not respected. People have no confidence in. So you're doing a fantastic job. Senators Todd Young and Dan Sullivan, great senators, wherever you may be. You're here someplace. Where are you? Hello, fellas. Good senators. Great guys. And Representatives Ronnie Jackson, White House doctor. He served 3 presidents. He said he had Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of Barack Hussein Obama? You had Obama. I didn't want to talk about Biden, but he said, and you had Bush. You had young Bush, I call him, young Bush. I was not a fan, but that's all right. But the press asked him, who was the healthiest of the 3? Dr. Ronnie, stand up, Dr. Ronnie. There's a big deal. Took a lot of heat for this. They said, no, most guys would say, well, we don't want to talk about that. They said, who's the healthiest of the 3? He said, President Donald J. Trump by far. If he didn't eat junk food, he'd live to 200 years old, he said. And I love this guy. And he then left and he ran. He was an admiral. And he then left and he was a White House doctor, a very respected one. He saved a lot of lives. He was a great doctor. People don't realize that. And he then left and he said, sir, I'd like to run for Congress. I said, you've never done it before. You won't be able to pull it off. In a very, very all Trump district, there were 28 people running. Man was retiring. He's been there for years. And I said, Ron, I don't know. It's going to be tough, but we'll try it, right? And we got him in. He blew him away. There was one man that was favored. He was a rhino. He was favored to win easily, and we wiped him out, right, Ron? And he's been a congressman. He's one of the most popular people in Congress, but I don't care about that. I just care that he was my doctor, and he said I'm the healthiest human being he's ever. Ronnie, am I healthier than these guys back here? Oh, thank you. All right. See, this is why I like him. Also with Ronnie is Derek Van Orden, a fantastic.
Okay, we will eventually see what else Trump says about this. I mean, the majority of, I think, his introductory comments about the war have been done. Now he's getting into introducing all the football players, which is not as relevant to us. But I mean, once again, Trump is speaking with the bravado and braggadocious attitude that the United States is going to win this war and that we will be victorious. And I guess time will tell to see if that happens. 652 on the S&P. We got a bunch of other pieces of breaking news right here. First of all, this is crazy, guys. The International Energy Agency is calling for people to cut oil demand by working from home, flying less, driving slower as the Iran war rocks global energy markets. The International Energy Agency is saying we need you to use less oil, which, guess what, is really bad for GDP if people stop doing stuff, because oil is necessary to do stuff, which is necessary for growth, because of the energy crisis. That is crazy. The IEA is actually asking people to fly less and spend less in the economy so that we can deal with the energy crisis. So that's the first headline right there. Second, Iran says we are calling on Afghanistan and Pakistan to improve ties and offer help. Looks like they're looking for more allyship in the Middle East. They also said attacks against Turkey and Oman were not carried out by us. It was carried out by either Israel or the United States. Let me pull up the exact statement right here. So these other attacks by proxy in the Middle East that Trump was talking about, Iran is attacking their proxies. I mean, obviously, you can disagree with this as well. Iran could obviously be lying here, but their argument is that this was not done by us. This was done by the United States. So you have a variety of statements coming out from Iran right now. And then you have the Israel Defense Force, IDF, said they detected a new wave of Iranian ballistic missiles headed toward the country. This was posted 4 minutes ago. Air defense systems are working now to mitigate the threat, which means you probably will see more videos of sirens going off in Israel at the moment as they're trying to navigate more of these ballistic missiles. That is crazy, bro. The IEA says we need you to work from home and not drive to work so you can help on what's going on with oil. SoFi going green right there on the day, 1708. Seeing a little bit of a rebound in all the banks as we get towards the middle of the day. I mean, that is incredible, dude. That is freaking. The IEA just released 400 million barrels of oil, which again is going to buy us a couple of weeks. Like it's not really much oil. We consume a lot of oil every day as a global population. So the idea that now we have to lower ourselves and I mean, this is like contrary to capitalism, right? Like we're instead of growth, we're like trying to focus on how to degrow to deal with the oil supply. It is just such a messy situation. And I think it's a wake-up call to all of us that are just humans on this planet, that oil runs the world. And the price of oil going up affects everything. And you know, now we're dealing with it. Robin right there, 72, that's down 2.9. The memory names are still getting hit. SanDisk down 7, Micron down 5, Western Digital down 6, Coherent down 8. Let's get another update right here as well on what's happening with oil.
But there is little indication we'll see a meaningful uptick in production for two reasons. The first is the shape of the curve. Prices farther out have moved higher, but WTI for January delivery is around $77. That's about $20 below where the front month is currently sitting. And the second is infrastructure limitations. Last year, producers focused on maintaining output and cutting capex, so they didn't drill new wells. Rystad Energy noting the DUC availability, or drilled but uncompleted wells, which are the fastest avenue for heightened production, is limited. In an accelerated drawdown of excess DUCs, the firm estimates 111,000 barrels per day of supply could come online in the next few months, but they said that is highly unlikely. We could see some of the private players trying to take advantage of these higher prices, but it's unlikely from the majors. And guys, what we hear again and again is the number one thing they want is certainty on the oil price environment. And right now, anything but certain.
Yeah, I mean, I guess how do we keep pointing to, the oil term backwardation or the how oil is being priced in the future to determine just how long the market thinks this is going to last in terms of elevated prices, which matters for the economy and inflation. What do you see now?
So right now, for the forward curve is still trading about $20 below where we currently are. And so the market is still saying that they don't think that this is going to be a long-term event. But what we are seeing is that in the cash market, look at Dubai and Oman. Dubai prices hit a record $166 yesterday. And the cash prices are important because that tells us what actual oil buyers and sellers are paying for oil versus the financial players who are involved in the futures market. So when you look at what's going on immediately, there are warning signs flashing all over the place about how tight the physical market is. And the thing is that the longer this goes on, the tighter that becomes, the harder it is to reposition tankers and get these barrels flowing. And also there is a real risk here that about 2.5 million barrels per day of production could never come back online fully, given the reservoir degradation in places like Iraq and Kuwait. And so the longer this stretches on, the likelihood that the curve is going to start to tick higher. But for right now, January WTI sitting at 77. And so that is not going to entice producers to uptick their production because they are not going to get 98 by the time that oil comes online. Right now, the market is saying prices will be lower. Still so many question marks here, though.
Really quick.
That's a great point. Basically, she's saying the oil companies don't want to produce oil right now because in the time that it'll take them to produce the oil and actually get it refined and shipped and put in the barrels and everything they need to do to ship the oil, prices will be down. And so if it costs you 77 to make it, thinking you're going to get it to sell for 98, but by the time you try to sell it, it won't be at 98, you're not going to make it right now.
because, you think the prices are inevitably going to go down. You're not going to take the upfront risk of putting all that capital in. But in the meantime, that's also going to keep prices elevated if people don't want to create as much supply, right? Because if there's less supply and more demand, that keeps prices up. That is I didn't even think of that. That is a fascinating revelation for these oil companies, which is that if they don't think they can actually exit their barrels at 95, why would they make them for 77? That is absolutely incredible. And that's where we're seeing a little bit more pain right here. Isn't this why futures contracts exist? Yeah, 100%. Obviously that's where speculation comes in on trying to navigate this. But realistically, it's more about the incentive for these oil companies. They're probably looking at futures as a way to guide them on where they think the price action will be. But until the price actually comes down in a meaningful way, you might just not have that supply easily opening up. ExxonMobil, that one is up 30% year to date, by the way. Or sorry, Chevron's up 30%. Exxon's probably also in the same. Chevron at 204, that's hitting a new 52-week high. Exxon year to date is up 31% as well. Dude, I'm still not over the fact that the IEA is coming out and telling people to drive slower and fly less. See, this is where Ray Dalio has a lot of talking points around this idea that if you want to go see your family in Mexico and you have to go take a flight, and then the government says, well, we need everyone to come together to, stop spending as much money because obviously the more spending, more oil prices, all that, right? It's all intercorrelated with the global economy. So we need people to kind of voluntarily give up some of the things they wanted to do. And then you have to ask yourself, well, wait a second. The government's not going to stop me from going to see my family in Mexico. You start to get some people that get pretty upset, right? Because, how many people really care about the environment over seeing their family? I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. If it's my family versus the environment, I think 99% of people are picking their family. But now what happens if the government mandates that you're not allowed to go on more than 2 flights a year or something, right? This is where it gets really dicey with policy, and all of it's dictated, obviously, by the cost of capital and, in this case, oil prices. And if oil was obviously, if we were in some doomsday scenario and oil was pushing $170, $200, it's not crazy to imagine the government would start putting in some serious restrictions and saying, we just cannot afford for people to go on spring break anymore because of the cost of oil. That's absolutely crazy to imagine that could end up playing out. During war, it's always been different. Yeah, during war, we've seen the government do a variety of different things in terms of mandating what they have to do. And it's an interesting thought experiment, right? This is why Dalio talks about this stuff, because the intersection of capitalism with public policy is something that the Chinese have a totally different perspective on versus the United States. The Chinese obviously mandate their companies to do a lot of stuff. In America, we have a relatively free democracy where companies are able to do what they want to do within reason. But if the price of any major commodity goes up to the point where it runs the entire world, then yeah, governments probably start to think about how they can change different elements of what's actually happening. China pulls silver from global markets to meet surging demand. That's from Bloomberg right now. Interesting that silver has been dead over the past couple of weeks, even though China has been, as per Bloomberg, trying to get some more silver. Silver right there down 1.43% on the day. Gold back to 4,500. It was at 4,650. Now it's at 4,500. The Amish with their horse and carriages are going to be like, I told you so. Oh my gosh. Look, obviously, I don't think the government's going to be, mandating people to not be able to take flights. But the point is the fact that you have an international agency recommending to people that they want you to stop doing that is a bit ridiculous, right? And you take it to its logical extreme. You're like, wait a second. How would that actually play out? What is the trade ahead of Trump and Xi summit in China for the end of April? Okay, so that's another good question. First of all, we don't even know if it's happening. We don't even know if it's freaking happening. So Trump and Xi are supposed to be meeting on March 31st. There was a couple of quotes on March 16th
Trump says U.S. requested a delay of the G summit by a month or so back on March 16th. So I don't even know if that's going to fully take place. And if it doesn't, then I don't think there is a trade. If it does take place, the only trade I think could be short oil if Trump somehow makes a deal with Xi, or they try to negotiate around oil, or, Xi helps Trump get the ships through the Strait of Hormuz, or maybe there's something where Xi helps the United States, even though China wants to support Iran here. They probably don't want to support the United States, but they also want juicy oil. And in order to do that, you would have to open up that strait. But if I'm China, I would just go directly to Iran and be like, look, we're on your side. Like, just let us pass through, let us get what we need to get done. And if you want to say F you to the Americans, then you can go ahead and do that. So I don't even know if Trump's going to be able to meaningfully develop anything with China in any way that makes sense. Is IBM a short? As per Jason. By the way, saw Jason over I have his new hoodie. I'm not wearing it right now, but I will wear it on Monday. It's a nice money paper tree hoodie. Jason, I actually was talking to someone yesterday when I was getting lunch, and I know you've been right on the IBM short thesis, but the whole cobalt thing created a catalyst. They think IBM is going to be one of the biggest quantum plays in all the quantum plays that are out there. So I don't know that much about IBM in regards to quantum. Year to date, IBM down 15% this year. Obviously, it's been a short, but the person I was talking to at GTC thinks IBM is going to be one of the biggest quantum winners over the next 5 years. So I don't know. Maybe it's a short term and a long term. So only EVs would be allowed to exit the countries, no planes and gas cars. That is dystopian. That is dystopian, right? It is dystopian. And I don't think anyone would want that type of society, but you start thinking about what would happen if things really got that bad. And I think it's worth having that thought experiment. This is the weirdest thing. When people bring up a thought experiment and they're like, oh, that's fear mongering. It's like, are you just not are you intellectually mediocre? Is that are you so single-mindedly stuck in one frame of reference where you can't even imagine another possibility without thinking that's fear-mongering? What are we talking about? You have to understand the other side. You have to understand other perspectives. You might not agree with Dalio, but you should listen to the guy. He's worth a lot of money. He's made a lot of money. He's navigated a lot of markets. Not even ingesting those point of views. It's you're just all right. So intellectually mediocre is crazy. Yes, it is my favorite insult. It's my favorite polite insult. So no, it's not fear mongering. It's hey, there's try to understand different perspectives and look at history and see how things have happened, and then try to make conclusions based on that. S&P still basically at the lows of the day, 652. 652. Red Cat getting hit pretty worse right there, down 9% as well. Down 9% as well. Amid are using a Mac or Windows? I'm using a Mac. I don't know why, guys, the mic messes. I have a compressor. It's not just a mic plugged in through a USB. It's a proper setup. I don't know why randomly it just fades out like that. It's really weird. And maybe I just need a totally different setup, but it's a $400 mic, dude. It shouldn't be doing that. Should not be doing that. Okay, what else do we have going on? It's 11:20. So I'm going to stay on a little bit longer, guys. We're probably not going to do a market close today because I haven't slept in 24 hours, and there's probably no way. I honestly, I thought for a second I wouldn't be able to do the market open because I got off the plane and I'm like, bro, I can barely walk right now. But I was like, you know what? There's too much going on. We're getting home literally 5 minutes before we go live. It ended up being 5 minutes after we go live at 8:45. So we're just going to freaking go through it. So we're not going to do the close, but we'll be back for the Sunday futures as always. And, I don't think anything's going to change that much into the close unless Trump says something different. Is Trump still live? Let's go back to Trump. Let's see if we're getting any. Is he still talking? But outside of this right now, it's the same oil headlines that are dictating the market.
Was my baby. That has never happened. That hasn't happened in 81 years. A new force, and it hadn't happened. And I think we all agree that Space Force has become, you think, right? Very important to the success that we're having even now. Over the past few weeks, the world has seen the true strength and might of our sailors and aviators as they fought in one of the most complex and successful military operations of all time against the Iranian regime. And it's amazing. It's not, I don't want to get too crazy here. Not a contest. It's not even a contest. They do whatever they want. They can't, they had a lot of great equipment, Russian equipment, Chinese equipment, they had plenty of money. That equipment was useless against us, useless. No force on earth can beat the American sailors or the American military. We're the strongest in the world by far. To those standing behind me who will soon be joining these missions, I say, sail fast, stay strong, and go Navy. And I just want to congratulate again this incredible team on this.
Okay, so not getting anything from Trump, just once again, I mean, he's been going on for about 25 minutes now. Same argument that Iran's military is no match for the United States. SoFi flipping green. Micron still down 3, recovering a little bit from 425. It hit 421 yesterday. That was your absolute bottom. Micron now at 430. Although they had one of the best earnings ever, the market is not ready to give them any premium. Literally, their 4 PE is now 5, which is pretty incredible. S&P 652. At least we didn't lose 650 yet. We've got a lot of options, 6 trillion of them expiring in like 4 hours. So there might be a lot more shenanigans that take place in the broader market. Is Nebius still up? Nebius is red. Oracle getting hit with the software names as that continues to be red. Mid, are you buying anything here? No. No. I bought NVIDIA last week, but no. I like, again, Elaine said it the best yesterday. She's, sometimes neutral is a place to be in. Like sometimes you just don't have to go that crazy pulling the trigger. And again, I don't think it's bad to buy some of these names. Like I don't think it's crazy to buy SoFi here at 17 after falling from 27. But I also think it's okay to just wait and like see how things play out. Because right now the uncertainty, like if you want to call a bottom right here across the entire market, be my guest. But what is the data point that you're using to cause the bottom? Is it sentiment? Okay, maybe sentiment's one piece of data. Is it you think oil's not going to go higher from here, so oil has to go down? It's like, okay, maybe that's another piece of data. But realistically, the only way we legitimately bottom here in any meaningful sense, and like this is just how I objectively feel about this, is the war has to end. There has to be a headline that says the war is over. Last time we bottomed in the Greenland tariff thing, Trump said, I don't want Greenland anymore. When we bottomed on Liberation Day, Trump said, I'm extending, or he said, he basically said it's a great time to buy and we're extending the reciprocal tariff to 90 days, which basically meant that we're not doing them anymore. And then after 90 days, he extended another 90 days, right? Like it was a very conclusive event that said the thing that was causing the panic is done. Does anyone realistically believe that over the coming week, forget weeks, but like in the next 7 days, that this war is going to be over? Or do we think there's a better chance that there's a headline on Sunday that says Trump is trying to take over the Karg Island as they've just sent thousands of new Marines and 3 warships to the Middle East? Like, how does any of that signal the end of this war? It just doesn't, right? Like logically, like as a logical human being, if we're sending more troops to the Middle East, even if not we're putting boots on the ground yet, the market can't price that in as being done. So then the question becomes, are all these names close to bottoming? I don't think Reddit's close to bottoming if the war is continuing. Trading at 12 times sales, which is not a super aggressive multiple, but it's also like the market doesn't have to give Reddit 12 times sales. That's a privilege to have a 12 times sales multiple. Palantir at 100 times sales, Rocket Lab at 50 times sales, like all SoFi even still at a 44 PE. One could argue that's too much to pay for SoFi. So, I mean, to me, if you're a long-term investor, obviously you DCA into positions you like and you want to hold them long and opportunities when they're down 40, 50% is the things you take advantage of. But if you're buying based on the idea that this is the bottom and we're moving up, I just find it hard using the data that we put together to make that assessment. The reason Liberation Day was so easy is because it felt so stupid and it also felt like it could change very soon, which is why retail bought 40 billion in March of 2025 and 40 billion of April in 2025. And the hedge funds, which
obviously felt like the end of the world was happening because they hadn't experienced a volatile event like that since Trump 1.0, decided that Trump was crazy, he's lost his mind, and they need to get out of the market. Retail called the bluff. I just don't think you can call a bluff as easily now where Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, the United States, Israel are all involved. It's just not that easy. So that doesn't mean go bearish. Again, I've said this over and over, time and time again. That doesn't mean go bearish. I am not selling equities here because I also think Trump can pivot. And when he does pivot, you just don't know when it's going to happen, but you can't time it. So, I mean, be my guest if you want to go all cash and then wait for the bottom. Like, again, that's not as probabilistic to nail, but it's possible. It's just hard. So I don't think you go cash. I think, again, the strategy is you benefit off the volatility by selling covered calls in the meantime and try to make some premium off this. And then once things officially, even Stock Talk said it best when he was on the show the other day, he did not catch the bottom in April of 2025. He waited for a bottoming event, and then he started buying in the middle of May when it was very obvious that the market had bottomed. And he had to pay prices that were 10, 15% higher, but the market then went up 40%, at least on individual names. The S&P ended up going like up 37%. And that was still a great return, even if you didn't get the April 8th lows, which I don't think anyone here got the April 8th lows. Maybe you bought something around the time, but most of us started buying heavily in May once it became obvious that things were going back to normal. That's when Jensen went to the Middle East and Trump set up all these deals. And like, that's when, momentum really started. So to me, no, this is not like the biggest buying opportunity ever because you have to be certain this is the bottom. But it also is not a bad buying opportunity because I don't think the war is going to last till the end of the year. And if I'm wrong on that, then stocks are going lower. But if I'm right on that, eventually there is going to be some pivot. Oh, also taxes, right? I mean, dude, I am getting ready to pay a pretty heavy tax bill. That money's going to have to come out of the market. I imagine this is the same for a lot of people. And maybe some people did the responsible thing and got their money before they had to deal with the tax deadline. But like, that's another headwind for April where, now you get the tax refund tailwind, but also for at least for investors that have to pay real money. Yeah, there's money that's coming out of the market for taxes. And that's also not going to be the best. Yes, Jason, I fundamentally agree with it. Why catch a falling knife when you can let it stick in the floor before picking it up? I just agree. And I think Jason's also been very consistent with what I've been saying as well, which is that you look for their downside target. And if you really love the name, you acquire when you get your downside target. But also you don't go balls to the wall once you get there, because you also have to look at what's happening in the broader macro. And if the war is not ending and if things aren't looking that good, not even on the charts, just like objectively. And if the IEA is saying get on less flights because that might help the energy crisis, things aren't looking that good. And that doesn't mean you have to, easily get ready to buy. At least that's my perspective. Jason, that's an original quote? Wow. We need to patent that. That's a hell of a quote. That is not too bad. Did you see the Bernie video with Claude? I didn't watch it. Do we guys want to watch it? Because I haven't seen this thing yet. Talk about the marketing for Claude, though, dude. Incredible marketing for Claude. Okay, this video is 9 minutes, bro. I'm not going to... 9 minutes. We're not going to watch all of it, but is there a good moment? Let's see if there's a good clip of this. At least he's trying to understand more about AI. It's more than the rest of these politicians. All right, here's a 3-minute version. I'll speed it up a little bit. Let's see what Bernie said here.
The impact of AI on privacy. I want to know, among other things, just how much of the information that AI collects is being used, and what would...
Oh, wow. Trump ended the White House event and took no questions. Interesting. Okay. Yep. White House is done with the live stream. No questions. So we're not getting any quotes from Trump here.
Surprise the American people in terms of knowing how that information is collected.
Yeah, that's the thing that would probably shock most Americans. Companies are collecting data from everywhere. Your browsing history, your location, what you buy, what you search for, even how long you pause on a web page. Then they're feeding all of that into AI systems that create incredibly detailed profiles about you. What would surprise people is how little they actually consented to and how little they understand about it. Most people click agree on terms of service without reading them, and they have no idea that their data is being combined with thousands of other data points to build a picture of who they are. And then that AI uses those profiles to decide what ads you see, what prices you're shown, even what information gets prioritized in your social media feed. It's all happening in the background, invisible and largely unregulated.
I mean, I think most Americans.
Okay, so he basically asked Claude a bunch of questions that he knew he would get the answer he wanted, which is what all of us have done with LLMs, right? Like we're looking for confirmation bias. So he's trying to find out if American tech companies are surveilling on you. Listen, Bernie could have called me up, and I'm not trained on hundreds of billions of dollars of GPUs to say, no shit, Meta and Google know everything about you. I mean, yeah, they've been spying on us and we've been voluntarily giving them the ability to do so for free product for the past 15 years. Like, I don't know if he's trying to get brownie points with that video by trying to convince people that the tech companies are evil, but I mean, like, yeah, YouTube, when you search into YouTube, they know everything about you because you keep searching into it. Like, I don't think that's an AI thing. So, I mean, that marketing might appeal to a lot of people that are like already against big tech, but I don't know if you're getting anything that different from that video. Yeah, that video is a dud, bro. I thought he was actually trying to like learn about AI. He's just prompting it. I mean, he's not literally prompting it, but he's asking questions in a way where the AI wants to give him the answer he wants to hear. We've done that all of us have done that with LLMs, which is actually the risk to LLMs. Sometimes I have to tell ChatGPT to like be critical. Like I have to be like, no, like seriously tell me what's wrong with this. Sometimes it wants to be too nice to you. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal from what he's asking. If you're using something for free, you are the product, 100%. Can you go over the meetup schedule for the rest of the year? Okay, so definitely over the weekend, I am going to have a website pretty soon that is going to have all the dates for the meetups because at this point, given how many are popping up, I think there needs to be a central location for everyone to get them. But March 28th is LA. Chicago is May 9th. Okay. March 28th is LA. Chicago is May 9th. I'll put the Chicago link again in the chat. If you want to come to Chicago, please sign up. It's $100 for the ticket. And we're going to get that ready to go May 9th. And then Singapore is June 26th. Singapore is June 26th. We don't have any other dates outside of that. We have a tentative schedule outside of that, which will be on the website. But until then, June 26th will be Singapore. And then on Chicago, you'll have the hotel link being posted probably over the weekend. I know there's not a hotel link yet, but we are just working on getting the official discount for the hotel in Chicago. And so you'll be able to book that pretty soon. Yes, Jason, we're going to Singapore. I told you about this. Singapore link is not up yet. Singapore link will be up next week. And also this website will have all the links to the meetups. So you can buy the tickets from there. And this website will have the link for the streaming schedule. So it'll have everything. I should have done this a while ago. I don't know. It's taken me too long to build this, but it'll be a really simple website. And it should have all the information that people need. So we'll get everything out there pretty soon. Yes, I will post when I'm not going to stream as well. I will make sure that website has all the updates. Like if we're going on a big trip and I know I can't do the market close, I will make sure that website has the details on that. Shout out to Stock Market News in the chat. Evan, I think this was like the fourth event I spent with him. He's an awesome guy for those that don't know him. And hopefully you guys get to meet him one day. But he's literally one of the hardest working content creators that I've ever met. I mean, this guy, he hustles to get the content. He actually recorded the video of me as well. That the question that I asked to Jensen. I want to play it. I just think the audio is going to suck here. All right, we're going to do max audio. I'm not going to listen to the whole Jensen the answer because it was long, but my question was really quick. There's actually a funny story behind this as well that I'll say in a second. But yeah, he recorded the video. I mean, this guy, he caught freaking the Micron CEO with Jensen. He was with Jensen with Nebius. Like he caught every single big moment at GTC. And that's why his X account is like the best account to follow for news.
Hi, Jensen. Thanks for taking my question. My name is Amit. I'm a retail investor. The market has really started to question the value proposition for legacy software companies over the past few months. And with the rise of agentic workflows, many people think these platforms can be vibe coded away. I'm curious how you see AI working with those software companies to prove that they will be valuable for your stuff.
Yeah. And so please tell the retail investors they're just absolutely wrong.
So Jensen went on to say why software is not going to be dead, and why retail investors are wrong about thinking software is going to be dead. Now, the funny thing about this, okay, is that I didn't know if I was going to get a question. I was like one of the last 5 questions. So, time was running out and I was like, they're probably not going to give me a question. And then we look to my corner and there's the guy with the mic and he points at me, basically signaling you're about to get a question. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. I'm like, all right, we got to get ready for this question. But the funniest thing about this is when I gave my first question, and for those, I think most of you guys saw that first question back in January, I was a little verbose. I used a little bit too much vernacular to get my question out there. To my defense, Jensen did interrupt me twice and kind of messed up my train of thought, but I'm like, it's Jensen Huang interrupting you. Like, I'm not, it is what it is. And so it took about like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes to actually get my question out. But I do think the question was well worthwhile. And, Jensen gave a really good answer to it. So I think it was worth it. So the guy who gives me the mic, he comes up to me and he whispers, he's like, just please make sure you are concise. And me and Evan start dying because obviously our NVIDIA rep, shout out to Mark, who loved my original question the first time, but his only critique was like, bro, that you took a while to get the question out there. He gave me the second question. The only reason I got the second question is because of Mark, so shout out to Mark. But he told the guy who was holding the mic to tell Amit to please be concise. And that's why my question was so short this time. I was like, hey, I'm a retail investor. What do you think about software? And that was it. So yeah, I'm happy I got that question out the right way because I did not want to spend time rambling this time. Yeah, Jose also had a great question. Jose's didn't know he would get a question either, but they ended up giving Jose a question. So it was fun. It was cool. And GTC overall was really cool. It's just, this war is the overhang. And I think until that changes, we're not going to see any movement to the upside in a meaningful way. Him's going green on the day. Dude, what's wrong with this thing? This was breaking out to 28. The short float is now higher than what it was before the Novo partnership was announced. So at least it's not at 15, but it is not making that massive breakout move to the 30s. Play Jose's. Okay, so he got part of it recorded. Let me pull it up. It was a question about like what he thinks is going to happen over 10 years. Let me pull it up.
You released or discussed CUDA in 2006. And I feel like the market and the world only started to appreciate it a few years ago. In 2014, you did NVL Link. And NVL 72 is crucial for you getting, I guess, the AI inference king. What do you think is one of the products that you have out right now that you think the market is not appreciating it, and 5-10 years from now, you're going to be like, I told you?
That's a good question. I think I would have said Alpamayo is one of them. I would have said Cosmos is one of them. I would have said Omniverse is.
I'll leave the link in the chat, but Jensen basically mentions a bunch of different things that he thinks will be relevant over the next 10 years that, maybe they're not getting a lot of credit for. So it was a surprise to Jose. He was really happy he got his question. I'm happy he got his question as well because he's been covering NVIDIA way longer than I have. And so it was super cool. And it's really cool also to see NVIDIA embracing independent content creators. I mean, NVIDIA is doing it the right way. I mean, they know that a lot of the information gathering and distribution, dissemination of that information is happening through content creators, not just through Bloomberg. And so, they are really putting the time and the effort to prioritize that in a meaningful way. We got a big headline right here from Politico. Putin is offering to stop sharing intel with Iran if the U.S. cuts off Ukraine aid. The U.S. rejected the Russian proposal, which has nonetheless sparked concerns in Europe amid growing transatlantic tensions. Wow. Putin really said it's either Ukraine or Iran. Based on Politico's reporting, Trump picked Ukraine, obviously. It would be kind of pointless to not pick them. And also, I mean, this is kind of stupid, right? He's going to stop sharing intel with Iran. I mean, I'm sure Russian intel is decent, but I think US and Israeli intel is way more valuable than Russian intel. So it probably wasn't a hard choice. But the fact that he even put that up as an offer, fascinating. That's how they're negotiating. That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible as we see a bunch of these different oil headlines continue to come across the board. Where is the 10-year? Micron falls below 30 or 430. The 10-year is 4.382. Largest spike we've seen in basically 3 months. And S&P is still red, 0.5% on the day. By the way, the 30-year is up 2%. The 10-year is up 2.5. The 2-year is up 2.3. So you've got all the bond yield spiking this morning. Why is CEG down so much? Constellation Energy, that's a good question. Why are they down 5%? The biggest headline for them was a couple months ago when they got that big partnership with Meta. I don't see a big reason for it. It might just be quad witching more than anything. A bunch of the energy names are getting hit. Some of them in oil and gas and LNG are going up like a VG, but because of Meta, right? Well, that makes more sense. Yeah, because of course they have that deal with Meta, and now Meta's. I mean, I don't know if it's a proxy to Meta, but Meta going down probably doesn't help with that 1 gigawatt deal that they have with Meta. Maybe NEE as well. Create a little bit of inability for them to get that deal. What a freaking market, dude. What a freaking market. I emailed you about the London meetup, but didn't get a reply. I will be handling a lot of that over the weekend. So for the people that reached out to plan London, that is likely happening in August. You will probably get an email from Jess soon over the weekend. And yeah, I appreciate everyone who reached out because we're definitely going to need some help on planning London. So we're just trying to get LA out of the way, get Chicago ready. Singapore, we just paid the deposit on Singapore. So Singapore is definitely happening. You'll get a link for that next week. And then we'll get ready for the UK. Then we will get ready for the UK. Did you buy MITK? No, I did not. I like the thesis here. It's just, again, it's a smaller name, $700 million company. I'm not really excited to buy these small names in this market environment right now. It's just not the most exciting to me. Stock Talk has a little bit of a different of a strategy that he deploys. I think his thesis is right about it being materially re-rated. It's just, once again, in this market environment, does anything get a re-rating when oil is at $100? I mean, Micron put up the best earnings I've seen since NVIDIA 2023, and they can't get re-rated. Now, I know Micron's up a lot this year, but structurally, the analysts completely misunderstood their business to be that off on their estimates. You would think that deserves a re-rating from maybe a PE to like a 9 PE, like maybe a 7.5 PE. No, they're not getting any re-rating here. So to expect the smaller names to do that as well in the short term, which long term is a different question. You know, that could also be some pain. By the way, here's an update on some of the AI stuff that's been happening. Trump introduced some new AI legislation this morning as well. Let's take a look at that.
Morning, Emily.
Good morning, Carl. Well, look, this is essentially a to-do list for Congress when it comes to regulating AI. It's the White House attempting to really add momentum to one of those stalled pushes to preempt a growing number of state AI laws with a federal standard. And the framework actually, for the first time, really splits up kind of where states can put AI regulation in place to protect consumers, prevent fraud, but then says that they don't want states to be mandating how AI companies develop their models, and they don't want states to hold AI companies responsible if, say, a
third party uses their software unlawfully. Now, so far, pushes for a federal AI standard have stalled in Congress. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have told me that some guardrails need to be in place here. But still, the industry has cheered this framework that's come out. And Andreessen Horowitz's head of government affairs, Colin McCune, tweeted that AI needs strong oversight from the federal government to protect the American public and to provide clear rules for our innovators. Today is a big step. Now, Congress needs to come together and act. And we've seen White House officials, including David Sachs, Michael Kratzio, saying in separate statements that they also look forward to working with lawmakers on getting specific bills passed and next steps. This is really wide-ranging framework. And look, it does include some items that have that bipartisan support in Congress. Things like reforming the permitting process, which could expedite data center construction, and requiring that AI models put privacy and safety protections in there for kids. But both of those bills are still being negotiated. Given that lawmakers only have a handful of months left, time is really quickly running out to get this done. White House also kind of notable in here. We've talked about copyright. They've asked Congress to really stand down on whether deciding if AI models can train on copyrighted material, saying that that decision needs to be left to the court. So I guess one thing off of Congress's plate there, but of course, many, many more that the White House wants to see. Not a lot of time to do it. Guys?
Is there anything controversial or partisan in there that the Democrats will put up a fight, or do you think this has some real chance of momentum, getting both sides supporting?
Sarah, what's been really interesting about AI on the Hill right now is that things have yet to really fall among partisan lines. I've heard both Democrats and Republicans have concerns with crafting state AI laws, but I've also heard both Democrats and Republicans say, you know what, yeah, we do need to make sure these AI companies are not hindered in how they develop things. We're open to looking into this. I think it's just a matter of Congress really needing to do that coalition building, needing to do that member education. And the question is, I think at this point, how much is the White House going to be involved in pushing that forward?
Yeah, I don't think this AI framework matters one bit compared to the war. That's not going to be a headline that changes anything. I mean, the White House has put out so many of these like AI executive order memorandums and stuff. Like none of it's real. The only thing that mattered was the big beautiful bill that created a lot of tax subsidies and zoning, lifted zoning restrictions for data center builds. Like that's what's helped AI in this country. So, I mean, when it comes to these negotiated AI frameworks, none of that's moving the AI stocks any higher. This war ending soon is, what hopefully would do it. Iranian president right here to neighboring countries put out a statement. We are ready to resolve all issues with you. Again, the Iranians are going to try to act like they want to help all the countries they've been bombing for obvious reasons, because, those countries want to stop getting bombed. But more of it is to put pressure on Trump and Israel to make a deal, which is smart on the Iranian side. But are they ready to actually work with Qatar and Saudi Arabia, or is this, are they just saying it to get the Trump administration to try to end this sooner than later? By the way, the Prime Minister of Qatar yesterday said, we are evaluating the damages. They can be compensated unlike human lives. Our message is this: targeting such a facility, one that represents, let me pull this up right here, one that represents a major source of income and a backbone for the Qatari economy, is unacceptable. It also supports many people around the world who are already under stress. We hope that the Republic of Iran understands that it is depriving these vulnerable people of the support we currently provide. And he's 1,000% correct about this. I mean, most of these Middle Eastern economies are literally rooted in oil. Like the reason the Saudi Arabians don't have to pay for healthcare and barely have taxes is because of oil money. Same thing in Qatar. And I mean, if that goes away, dude, like the way of life inside of those regions becomes not that strong, especially because there's not that much entrepreneurial spirit inside of those regions. I mean, a lot of things are dictated by the kingdom, which then passes things down to the citizens. You don't have people coming up with the next Google and Meta and Amazon and employing hundreds of thousands of people in Saudi Arabia. That's what MBS wants to happen. That's why he's investing so much in AI. But that's not happening yet. Oil money is still the basis for their economy. And unfortunately, that oil money is now under threat. 10 years still, 4.38. 4.38. SoFi getting a little bit of love, 17.24. Where's JP Morgan? 287. Where were you guys when you saw the short report? because I wasn't live, obviously. Where was everyone when the Muddy Waters thing came out? And I know Tanner got banned that day, so Tanner had to go on Twitch to talk about it. But obviously, most people use YouTube, and they probably weren't able to easily get an answer to it. White House official just said the U.S. Army is capable of seizing Iran's Karg Island at any time. See, when you hear quotes like that, it's really hard to think we're close to bottoming, because if they end up going for it, I mean, I don't know how the market's going to interpret that. If it's just a further escalation of the war, then obviously that's going to, continue oil going up. Yeah, Tanner got banned on YouTube. NVIDIA took down his stream by accident, which is why he wasn't able to stream that day. I was crying. I was on the toilet. I was at a medical appointment. I felt like, as soon as I saw it go below 17, I was like, all right, there's something funky going on. And it's like, Muddy Waters, Anthony Noto is committing fraud. I'm like, all right, this is getting a little aggressive. Iranian president just now, every time we met with the supreme leader, he would emphasize that nuclear weapons are religiously forbidden. Okay, so this is something I found out for the first time based on the Kent guy on the Tucker Carlson podcast. I didn't know the Iranians have a religious doctrine that forbids from developing nuclear weapons. Now, again, are they going to follow that to the T? I mean, obviously, we have a lot of evidence that they have not necessarily done that. But I couldn't believe that's the case. Obviously, Trump and Israel are not going to take them at their word at that, which is why they're not going to believe anything they say right here. But the fact that that is some level of a doctrine that exists is interesting to hear. This is what Kent had to say about that on that pod.
A nuke. Okay, got it. Everyone agreed with that conceptually. Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region. And their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program, because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Sodomized by.
I didn't know that. I didn't know Iran actually had the religious doctrine. Now, as the United States or as a adversary of Iran, would you believe that they're going to live up to that religious doctrine and not develop a nuclear weapon? Obviously, no. I mean, there's no way you can take them at their word and believe that they wouldn't develop it. That is a separate question from, were they close to getting a nuclear weapon and using it in any meaningful way that prompted the necessity to go to war? That's a whole different question. But I didn't know there was a religious element to them not having one. I don't know if that religious element actually played any foundational role in them not being able to develop it, or was it the lack of infrastructure, the lack of the ability to enrich uranium that actually played the role in them not developing the weapon? So when the Iranian president says, religiously we can't develop one, not sure if the United States is going to take that as seriously. Another quote by the Iranian president just now: we can, with neighboring countries, establish security in the region. We are not thinking at all about interfering in the affairs of other countries. Again, they've bombed a ton of refineries over the past 2 weeks. So when they say we don't want to interfere in the affairs of other countries, their actions are not necessarily matching their words right there. And I don't know if the United States is going to be ready to take them seriously. Is Microsoft still hit? Microsoft is still hit today as well, 384. 384 on Microsoft. I still think Microsoft's also one of the best Mac 7s right here. It's just not going to be up and to the right as quick as, small micro cap that might be in the right thematic.
This chart I think is very interesting. Wow, take a look at this, guys. Talk about some systematic selling right here. S&P 500 outflows of 64 billion along with the Nasdaq over the last 3 months. This is from SPDR. This is a reversal from the 50 billion of inflows, 3-month inflows posted in November. This is almost double the previous decade high set in 2018. Not even the 2020 pandemic and the March-April 2025 sell-off saw such significant outflows. As a percentage of assets under management, the 3-month outflow is up to -5%, the biggest since Q1 of 2023. Remember, Q1 23 was right after we bottomed in October of 22, and there was a lot of fear and panic. Tesla went to $100 during that time. By comparison, the largest percentage outflow over the last decade was -8% in April of 2018. That's when we started raising rates about 8 years ago. Wow, 65 billion decline in the past 3 months. And it makes sense because, I mean, the S&P is down 6% from the highs. Like, that probably equivocates to something around that ballpark, and that reverses the 50 billion inflow that we had in the 3 months leading into November. How is that not a bottom? Well, I mean, look, if that 64 billion turns into 80 billion because, you know, some shit hits the fan and oil goes up and more people want to de-risk. Again, I want to agree that we are close to a bottom. I want to think oil's not going to 120. I want to think Meta is not going to be stuck at 18 times forward earnings. I want to think that the highest level of tech shorts since 2016 means that, you know, if everyone's prepared for the crash isn't going to happen. But I think there's a difference between saying if everyone's prepared for a crash isn't going to happen versus a bottom. A bottom is, you know, in terms of how retail thinks about it, a V-shape, right? Like, oh, we put this in S&P, let's call it 645, boom, it happened, and now we go up. Which is not a crash, which again, I don't think has to happen because everyone's too prepared for it. But if that V-shape doesn't happen, if it goes from 645 back to 655, which is basically where we're at today, that wasn't, I mean, maybe that was a bottom, but it wasn't like a bottom in the way that people were expecting it over the past, or the way that people are conditioned to it over the past couple of years, where a singular event happens, it creates a point on the chart, and then from that point, you are free to buy, and you can buy into strength, and you're not going to have any issues. Like, I don't know if we easily get that scenario this time. Yeah, it feels more like a slow bleed, which will create an eventual bottoming. It's just not going to be as quick as I think most people want it to be. It's an L-shaped stock market. Yeah, it's a K-shaped economy and an L-shaped stock market. Yeah, like ground troops are heading to the war zone, and we're seeing 64 billion leave the NASDAQ and the Qs. It's hard to signal that together as a bottom. If anything, it signals the opposite, that there's probably a little bit more pain, especially if the ground troops, you know, meaningfully get deployed on the ground in Iran. Which, again, let me put that poll in the chat. Does anyone really think that Trump's going to put troops on the ground? Like, I think he'll put troops in the Middle East, in the Strait, on the Navy ships. I actually think he puts them on the ground. Would Trump put troops on the ground in Iran? I don't know, dude. I want to believe that that's not going to happen. I want to believe, no, he's not doing that shit, bro. He had a really strong economy before all of this, boots on the ground. And by the way, we're going to need money for that, which goes back to, there's another clip of Trump talking about the $200 billion that he was requesting from Congress. I mean, like, that's going to come out of the taxpayer, and we don't have any money to pay for this shit because we have a lot of debt we have to refinance. So someone's going to have to be able to make sure those troops actually have the weapons they need, and it's going to come down to the taxpayer if this ends up playing out. This is what Trump had to say yesterday about that extra $200 billion.
Almost over. Why is the Pentagon going to ask Congress for an additional $200 billion?
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to, but
by the way, he's talking about a nuke right there. End this thing in 2 seconds. Like, make no mistake about it. He is talking about a nuclear weapon. He doesn't want to say it because that crosses a line for a lot of people if he's threatening to use a nuke. But he is implying that the United States could use a nuke.
But we are being very judicious. But we want to do. Don't forget.
So again, requesting $200 billion. I mean, how is that a signal that the war is ending anytime soon? It's not. Which means, once again, how do you signal that we're close to a bottom? I think the best case scenario is we just stay flat, up or down 1 or 2% every week, and we just stay in that motion. I really do think. Obviously, I mean, the best case scenario is we go up, but like, barring that's not going to happen, based on the war continuing, not going down would be nice. But maybe we don't have the privilege of going up right now. So I don't know. I don't know how this ends up playing out, guys, but it definitely doesn't feel like it's stopping anytime soon. Wow, 70% of you say Trump would put troops on the ground. I guess I'm in the minority. I really think he's. I mean, look, I didn't think he would bomb Iran either. So, I mean, maybe my opinion here is not the best, obviously. But, I mean, if that were to happen, we'd have a whole different situation on our hands. Of a whole different situation. Yeah, the Carg Island, again, a ton of headlines that the U.S. might be thinking of seriously navigating that. I felt he would do Iran after he did Venezuela. Well, Venezuela was just such a quick operation, and markets recovered within like an hour after hearing about it, because we heard about it on Sunday on the futures. We tanked, and then by Monday we were back to green. It once again felt like a Liberation Day type of thing. This thing has just been extended for a much longer period of time. He would totally put boots on the ground. He's only refraining if he can make money from not doing it. The problem with boots on the ground is then, again, the market's just going to perceive this as like, the market could perceive it in a bullish way by saying, oh, like, we're going to capture the oil, and the United States is going to have more control of oil, and the Strait of Hormuz will be open, and yada, yada. So that's like the bullish part of it. If we win when we put boots on the ground and like effectively are able to navigate the region. But the gut reaction, I think the market would say, outside of the optimistic sense, is, oh, this is going to lead to a conflict. This is going to continue. Iran is going to unleash all their weapons at this point, because now it's like literally a Hail Mary. And they might start attacking Qatar and Saudi Arabia in a much more effective way, because they have nothing left to lose at this point if boots are on the ground. At that point, they're fighting for their sovereignty. And people get really desperate. But now, obviously, if the Iranian people revolt, and that turns into a whole it turns into a whole thing. It's just like, I don't know how the markets react to any of that. All I know is SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic better hurry their asses up and go public, because if we have boots on the ground, hey, you want to buy Anthropic stock? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know how many retail investors are going to be super excited. Retail is already super skeptical. As much as we want exposure to these companies, they're not profitable. They're not going to be profitable for a long time. And, Sam Altman and Dario, are these really the guys? I mean, Elon with SpaceX is a different story, but do Sam Altman and Dario motivate millions of individual investors to buy their equity? I don't know. I don't know if they're really going to be able to do that. I mean, Sam Altman obviously already has a very shady reputation. And if they don't go public now, then 2027, we're going to have to see how this war plays out for them to have the environment to go public. He might have to put boots
on Karg Island just to make sure Israel doesn't bomb it. Yeah, there was a couple articles talking about this yesterday as well, which is that, Trump is being very firm saying that Bibi's not going to attack. But who knows if Trump even believes himself when he says that, because obviously Bibi has attacked without the U.S.'s permission in a variety of places. And so maybe Trump has to put American troops there just to make sure that Bibi doesn't attack, because if he kills Americans, then it's not going to be good for Israel. And that might be another element of why troops will be on the ground there. Do you think it's a good time to buy Amazon? I think all the Max 7 are cheap. I think if you are buying them with a 3 to 5 year time horizon, you are going to be okay. Speaking of Amazon, but obviously in the short term, my general opinion is that the war is an overhang on all these companies, but Amazon also has a good exposure to Anthropic. But speaking of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, this headline was also crazy yesterday. Did anyone see this? He's raising $100 billion for a new fund to buy manufacturing companies and then use AI to automate them. When I heard this, I was just like, this guy really doesn't give a shit anymore about Amazon. Because the number one thing I was like, why doesn't Amazon partner with Bezos to raise a ton of money, and then Amazon has an equity stake in all the, you're talking about AI to automate manufacturing. Amazon does a lot of that stuff. Like, why wouldn't this just be something to help, I don't know, Amazon shareholders see some share price appreciation? Because it's the biggest Max 7 disappointment over the past 5 years compared to the NASDAQ. But no, Bezos is doing his own thing. So I don't know, maybe there will be some intersection with Amazon, but as of now, it doesn't seem like there's that much synergy. Jason says, imagine retail selling all of their good holdings to pile into SpaceX and OpenAI only to get smoke on inflated valuations. Yeah, imagine selling, stocks that you've built for years, positions that you've compounded, realize those gains to get into the new juicy IPO, and then that IPO doesn't end up working out. Look, and it's we can't have recency bias. We've seen this stuff happen. Figma IPO'd at 88, went to 150, now it's at 23. Not saying Figma's OpenAI or Anthropic, but we've seen IPOs get hit pretty bad. And that's not really something that I think retail would want to be part of if they're pitched this idea that SpaceX and OpenAI are the most important companies in the world. But then imagine OpenAI goes public, $950 billion valuation. Right now it's at 830, and then it goes to 500. Is that crazy to say OpenAI gets cut in half? Not to me. They're only doing 26 billion in revenue. Maybe they get that up to 30, 40 billion by the end of the year. They're definitely not making any profit. Their S1 is probably going to show a lot of growth, but zero margins. You could definitely build up a bear case. What if the shorts get control of the equity? And now that, when the shorts are in control, it's really hard to kind of manipulate it to the upside. There's so many ways you could see those stocks just get hit. By the way, the amount of exit liquidity the insiders were wanting, people have been in OpenAI since 2015. They would love to get out. They would have to wait 3-5 months, and then boom, they're probably dumping. The private markets don't make any sense to me, because any of those companies being public would not have a public valuation that is even remotely near the private valuation. And then the public stocks are getting destroyed because of general sentiment and then this war. So Figure, I'm privately invested in Figure. That's not worth $40 billion. It says it's worth $40 billion, but if Figure was public, there's no way in hell it would have a 40 billion. That money that I'm up on Figure, it's not real. I just thankfully don't have to see it fluctuate to the downside because it's a private company. But there's no way. There's no, they're still trying to figure out if the robot can actually work. And I know investors are excited about it, and they gave it a $40 billion valuation, but if it went public, I don't think it sustains that, because then they have to put up earnings. And if there's no profits, no real revenues, market's going to be like, okay, so it's a robot company that doesn't have any robots that they're selling. Why are we paying money for this? And so I think the IPOs are in a weird spot. Dell right there, that's getting a move off SMCI. Getting hit. SMCI, how much are we down? SMCI is still down 27%. Bezos is still the chairman of Amazon. It doesn't seem like he cares that much. It would be nice for him to do something, because Jassy can't make this stock go up.
So maybe Bezos, the chairman, could help, but he's not. If Anthropic IPOs at 500, 600 billion, that's going to pump the F up. If they announce and they will IPO 1 month after at OpenAI, OpenAI will be dumped like nothing else. Yeah, and again, Anthropic's already trading at 600 billion. Again, I had lunch with a VC friend in California, and he manages a relatively small VC fund, but he flips a lot of the secondaries in the private markets. And he was like, dude, Anthropic's at 600 right now. Like that 380 number was basically, if you were the elite of the elite, you got into Anthropic at 380. But that thing is worth 600. And it makes sense. I mean, they just did 6 billion in revenue in 1 month. Like we've never seen that type of growth. So like, I mean, they deserve a valuation that's higher in the private markets. In the public markets, all bets are out of the window because, you know, they have to deal with algorithms, even if the growth is really good. But the growth is really good on Meta. The growth is really good on NVIDIA, and those companies aren't. So it's like, you can't say the growth is really good when you go public because now you're at the whims of algorithms and market makers, and it's a totally different game. Thoughts on SMCI? I would just not touch. I would just not touch at all. TMDX is at attractive levels. Yes, they also had some recent updates, right? Wow, it went to 112. This thing was at 150. Dude, this is a name I was looking at. It's one of the other small caps. I know it's not really a small cap because it's at 4 billion, but it's relatively small. This is actually, okay, I'm happy you brought this up. This will be on my list this weekend. Because, look, I got excited at 124. It went to 150. I was like, all right, I'm not going to chase it at 150. Now back at 112. See, this is where you like things that happen in a bear market. Not a bear market, but in a choppy market. You get some opportunities back. It was good to not chase this thing because inevitably it was going to fall. Not because they did anything bad. I mean, their earnings were phenomenal. And I think they had an update at some conference 2 days ago. But oil's at 100. TMDX is not going to catch a bid. And that's why it's down. NVIDIA is below the 200-day. That is correct. Dude, everything yesterday lost its 200-day, and it has not recovered it. So, yeah, I mean, that's not pretty, obviously. Amit, would you rather add to Hood or NVIDIA at these levels? NVIDIA. And the answer is simple. Hood is, the Bitcoin threat is real on Hood, and if Bitcoin collapses, unfortunately, I don't think Hood should go with it, but the market is saying that Hood is a Bitcoin play now. So the answer is NVIDIA. It's just safer. Again, what I was saying when my voice drowned out on the mic is that NVIDIA is too cheap to go lower, even though it could, obviously. But the macro environment's not good enough for it to go higher, even though it deserves to go higher. So I really think it's in a sweet spot. Now, recession happens, everything goes out the window. But I think NVIDIA is one of those names. And it's different than Meta and Amazon. You know, Meta and Amazon are cheap, but they're not like they are absurdly cheap, but I guess I'm trying to find the right vocabulary to kind of make the claim that NVIDIA's accelerating revenue, guiding for 80% growth, and still trading at 17 times earnings, right? Meta's not necessarily doing that in the same way. Neither is Amazon. They've got a bunch of different issues with operating margins. NVIDIA, again, 75% gross margins. Like, it's just a different animal that is being artificially held down, in my opinion. Unless you think the whole CapEx cycle ends, GPU, data center stuff is not real, if you don't believe in the broader AI thesis. If you do, it's cheap. And it's not going anywhere. And Jensen is guiding for trillions of revenue. So I think it's a better buy than Hood and Rocket Lab and all those names, just because those names have a higher premium than NVIDIA, way higher premium, and they're not growing as fast, and they're more volatile. If the SpaceX IPO fails, what if Rocket Lab goes down 20%? If Bitcoin goes down to 40,000, what if Robinhood goes down 30%? Like those things I don't think are going to affect NVIDIA as much as they could affect a lot of other stuff. Intel is above the 200-day. Where is Intel? Intel is 45.53. This one actually made a run this week up to 48. But now that's back down. Micron at a 5.4 PE during a super cycle is criminal. I agree with you. I definitely don't think it should be there. But I also understand the broader sentiment in the market for why it's not there. Yes, I'm not doing the close today. I'll probably end the stream in about 10 minutes. I know I said that like an hour ago. We haven't been in the studio for all week, so I'm happy to be back. I literally walked into the apartment, I put everything down, opened the laptop, got some water, and we went live. So
Yeah, we're not going to do the close because I think I should go sleep. But we'll be back on Sunday. People are more bullish on Nebius than NVIDIA, while there is no Nebius without NVIDIA yet. Yeah, I mean, look, I like Nebius a lot compared to the other neoclouds, but the reason I sold at 105 2 weeks ago was because I just wanted something safer. Now, obviously, the stock pumped to 120s, amazing, boom, stock's up higher, that's great. But then they diluted it and the stock fell. Now the stock's creating a floor at 120, which is good. And I still have Nebius, so I'm happy that it's having that level of positioning. But I don't want that volatility. Like right now, I want something that's safer. And, you know, I'm happy Nebius is creating a floor to its price, but I'm also not in the mood of like taking the level of risk that it requires. Now, if you think Nebius is totally risk-free, then there is no risk, right? And it is what it is. Just like when Hood was $10, I didn't think there was that much risk. Other people thought there was risk, and I said, I don't care. But I think the stock has already made a pretty big move from 20 to 120. So, and we saw what happened after the pump. They diluted, and they were smart to dilute. You have to dilute to run this type of a business. You have to dilute. NVIDIA doesn't have to dilute. In fact, NVIDIA is taking equity stakes in all these other smaller companies. So is Nebius going to outperform NVIDIA? Probably, just because it's a smaller market cap. But is the risk higher for them? Yeah, I think so. And if anything bad happens in the broader AI landscape, I think Nebius gets punished way worse. Micron gets punished way worse. CoreWeave way worse than the Broadcoms, NVIDIAs, and AMDs of the world, just because, you know, at the end of the day, those are more the safety plays in that ecosystem. But I like it. And obviously, Nebius is up 40% this year. CoreWeave's down. Iren is barely. I mean, the Iren Nebius debate is kind of, in my opinion, so far concluded to the side of the Nebius bulls until Iren comes out with another big deal, because they haven't had one in a long time. And it just feels like Nebius is executing at a higher level than all the other neoclouds. And they don't have CoreWeave's debt. But I just, you know, my personal risk tolerance is liking something a bit safer. I've peed multiple times. I don't know how Amit does a full show without peeing. You know, I don't know either. I feel like I've trained my bladder from 8:45 to 12 to like not do anything. I think that's just how it is. My cousin owns a trucking logistics company and has now implemented an AI sales team to interact and negotiate with clients and truckers. The AI thesis is real. The AI Pecan interviews will be out tomorrow. I think you guys will get a kick out of hearing some of them. There are some small businesses I talked to, and I think you guys will enjoy. Forget, you know, Palantir software, but just learning how real companies that are the backbone of this country, that are small businesses, 2/3 of America's small businesses, the way they're using AI, it just makes you feel this trend is inevitable, and all of that compute is going to lead to more revenue. All of that's going to be very good for the semis, very good for the foundation model companies, and it's going to create a lot of abundance and wealth for everyone who's invested in these companies over the long term. In the short term, we have a war to deal with. But yeah, that trucking example that you're giving, I think it's very real, because there's many companies that are out there that are utilizing how this ecosystem is playing out. What other headlines do we have? What other headlines? Thanks for the super chat. What are your thoughts on VCX? Fundrise Innovation Fund was open on the app for $20 at the NAV, trading at 100 6-month lockup. This is one of those funds, right, that has private companies. I mean, look, if you want exposure to them, yeah, I'm just not a fan of any of the private valuations at all. So the answer to me is no. I don't want anything that has massive exposure to private valuation. Guys, look, people can disagree with me, but if these companies were public, they would not be getting these valuations. And I'm saying this about stocks that I'm personally privately invested in, because it's just obvious. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that Stripe doesn't probably sustain a $170 billion valuation when a firm, SoFi, Hood, and Coinbase are all getting slashed in the public markets. It's a fintech at the end of the day. The algorithms are going to say, oh, Stripe, fintech, cool. Put it in the bucket and short it. Like, it's a ruthless game in the public market. So no, I vocally have said I don't like the Robinhood Ventures Fund as an investment. I don't think Databricks is actually worth $135 billion. Especially people that I've talked to in the industry definitely don't think Databricks is worth 135. But I feel like the only reason Databricks gets that multiple is because they look at Palantir, which
gets the $300 billion valuation. Yes, I know Palantir is expensive, but obviously Palantir has put up the massive growth and it's synergistic with everything going on around the war. So like that, there is an explanation for why it gets that premium, even if you don't agree with it. But the only reason Databricks is getting that valuation is because, you know, the underwriters are comping it to Palantir, which is in the same data space, and saying, well, if Palantir can get 300, you guys can get 130. I don't think that necessarily makes sense because Palantir is a whole different ballpark. So if they're comping it to Palantir, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to think a comparison to Palantir is fair enough. So no, I don't think that valuation makes sense. And I'm sure that's happening with all the other different private names. They're comping it to other stuff that's out there. And then, oh, this one. Thank you for mentioning it. Kalshi is not worth $20 billion. It is not. This is insanity that they raised $1 billion yesterday at a $22 billion valuation. Absolute insanity. You know why? Robinhood's worth $60 billion. Robinhood is doing $4.5 billion of revenue. Kalshi is 90% of Kalshi's sports volume is coming from Robinhood. So like and Robinhood, by the way, has a plan to get off Kalshi, and Vlad's been pretty explicit about their plan, which is why they have their joint venture with Susquehanna Group. How the hell does Kalshi get a third of Robinhood's valuation? They're definitely not profitable, even if they're growing fast. And by the way, you talk about Robinhood being cyclical. Kalshi is cyclical because sports are the majority of their trading volumes. And when the sports season ends, like NFL, which what we saw in February, Robinhood lost 600 million contracts compared to January. Why? Because after the Super Bowl, you know, people weren't trading that much. Right now, it is primarily a sports endeavor. And over time, I think it'll be bigger than that. But I mean, dude, you're pricing in a lot of future growth to say Kalshi deserves to be worth $22 billion right now. Like that, I'm so happy you brought that up. I saw that yesterday and I was like, this is not real. Like, now, look, are investors willing to buy the future of prediction markets, and that's why there's so much capital out there? Yes. But the fact that investors want to give Kalshi $1 billion instead of NVIDIA or Meta or Amazon or these companies that are putting up these massive numbers of growth also means that this is your little VC circle jerk that's going on right now. Why? Because Kalshi is not going to go public probably for the next 4 or 5 years, maybe 2 to 3 if we're being more optimistic. So if Kalshi was public, there's no way in hell it would be worth $22 billion. But the VCs and the secondary markets get to mark up. You know what the valuation they raised that 2 months ago? $11 billion. They doubled. How the hell you double your valuation? I don't care how much growth you're having, and make it a third of Robinhood's valuation when you're not profitable and you're not going to be profitable, and the majority of your sports volumes is going to cut you out probably in a year, which is Robinhood, and you're not going to be able to have a rev share with them. Now, the investors that put in that money probably see a much longer term vision. But the point is, they're seeing a longer term vision so that they can mark to market their gains in the private markets to say, oh, look, I've doubled, because they don't want to take the risk in the private markets, because they don't want to take the risk in the public markets, because the public markets are ruthless. So like my figure stock that's up 20x, I could be like, yeah, I'm sitting on a 20x, but realistically, I'm not. That 20x isn't real unless I sell it right now in the secondary markets, which, you know, maybe someone's willing to buy it. But like, it's not real. It's not an actual 20x until they go public and you have to, you know, deal with them trading at the valuation. Same thing with Kalshi. All of it's Fugazi, bro. All of it. It's not real. None of this shit is real. And by the way, I'm a fan of Kalshi. I'm not a hater. I obviously I support the prediction market. The valuation, dude. Come on now. Come on. A third of Robinhood's valuation. What are we talking about? More valuable than SoFi? Really? SoFi at 22 billion. So Kalshi's at 22 now. SoFi that's going to do $4.5 billion of revenue, growing adjusted EBITDA at 50%. Kalshi gets the same valuation for primarily DraftKings is at 12 billion, for goodness sakes. Like, what are we saying? What are we saying here? So yeah, all that to answer that question, that I think the private markets are in a little bit of a tough situation. Are you doing the Sunday Future Show? Yes, we will be doing the Sunday Future Show. Can you explain why Nebius is better than the other neo clouds? Nebius to me has an actual cloud that they're building that will not be cyclical based on CapEx. They will actually be able to build a cloud that is sustainable, independent of the hyperscalers. And then number two, if you look at the equity stakes that Nebius has in all the other companies that they're invested in, it equates to like 25 billion when you add ClickHouse and Toloka and all that stuff. And their market cap's like 30 billion. So Nebius's like VC fund, which they've invested very early in a lot of these companies, is worth almost the same as their market cap. Now, that doesn't mean the stock is necessarily cheap. The stock is actually quite expensive at 60 times sales, but it's way more diversified than Iren and CoreWeave. So to me, Nebius is the obvious winner in the NeoCloud space until Iren kind of gets a big deal and proves it differently. But the problem with all the NeoClouds is that they have to dilute. Yeah, AV Ride as well. AV Ride I see all the time. We saw it in San Jose. I see it all the time in Jersey. You know, that's another big stake that they don't they own 100% of it? I think Nebius owns like 100% of that business, right? Or like a significant majority of it. Yeah, the Nebius buses were all across San Jose as well. Kalshi has a regulatory moat. That doesn't make any sense because all the prediction markets have regulatory moats. If the CFTC is allowing people to trade prediction markets, then IBKR, Robinhood, all of them are protected by the CFTC. So I don't think they have some moat that is defendable by regulation. I mean, them not getting banned because the CFTC allows prediction markets is not a reason they should be worth $22 billion, at least in my opinion. I don't think that should be the case. Look, again, I like Kalshi. I'm a fan of prediction markets. Dude, I saw that headline yesterday. And I was like, what is going on, dude? It's starting to feel like 2021 a little bit with these valuations. Like, unless Kalshi is putting up so much growth that I'm unprivy to because I'm not in those meetings. And maybe that's where I have to be humble and be like, you know, Kalshi is way bigger than I think it is. But again, if you could track the Robinhood metrics, I'm pretty sure it's similar to Kalshi. Because if people aren't trading the weather on Robinhood, they're not trading the weather on Kalshi. But if they're trading NBA March Madness contracts or NCAA March Madness, then they're going to do the same on Kalshi. It's all cyclical with sports as of now. So to give that a third of Hood's valuation to me is just like, wow. Either Hood's super cheap or Kalshi is super overvalued. And in this market, Hood is probably not as cheap given the oil headwinds and the crypto headwinds. Kalshi is probably just ridiculously overvalued. But it doesn't matter because it's in the private markets. So they don't have to deal with any of that. S&P still getting hit right here. 653 down 0.7. SoFi actually ending up green so far. NVIDIA trying to recover above 176. Bitcoin thankfully holding on to 70 at least. But obviously still an ugly day across the board. Okay, guys, should I go to sleep? I feel like I definitely came back for the market open here. Are we on 3 hours? We're on 3.5 hours. Where does the time go? You know, someone asked me at GTC, they were like, so you just talk all day? I was like, yeah. They're like, how do you do it? I'm like, you know, I don't know. The comments help it happen. Anything new since the AM? I'm not seeing any crazy headlines. We've got some Jensen clips at the All In podcast, which I thought was pretty good, but he didn't really say anything that different that people don't know about. Yeah, so I don't see anything too crazy here. Dude, I haven't had instant coffee in 2 weeks. I think I'm done with my instant coffee kick. I got to order those iced teas I told you guys about from Whole Foods. I think those are the wave now. Think those are the way. Dude, I went to Starbucks when I was at San Jose in GTC and I got a lemonade. That's how bad I am with coffee. Did you pick up some interviews? Yes, they'll all be posted over the weekend. I think you guys will enjoy it. That's why the market's down. That's fair. Eat before you sleep. Dude, I usually don't eat in the morning. Well, I guess it's not the morning anymore. Oh boy. Yeah, we'll have to figure it out. We're going to get back on the schedule this weekend. And we will keep going. Thank you so much for being here for all the time. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. It was really cool getting to meet a bunch of people at GTC. If Krupa's still watching, it was so fun meeting her husband. And I was like, yeah, let's FaceTime her right now. She was in the car. She didn't have her camera on originally. But I was like, yep, it's me. It's so cool, dude. And that's why the meetups are so fun, because like getting to see Elaine, like just getting to put a human behind the face is super special and important, especially in times like this, because everyone's trying to navigate different perspectives and ideas, and that stuff is super, super important. So again, LA meetup March 28th. Steve will be there, Chris will be there, Sam will be there, Jason will be there. We'll have a lot of OGs at the meetup. Should be a fun time. And then we'll keep going. Then we will keep it going. Will you come to Tanner's Toronto meetup? Yes. If he has one, I will absolutely try to come. I think he wants to do one in August, so I will try to be there. Spy falling again. I don't think there's a headline. I think it's just 12 p.m. algos at this point. Well, crude's pumping again. High of day on crude, 97.33. That might do it for you. That might do it for you. Admit you messed up less on word pronunciations on no sleep than you do on normal sleep. Maybe we need to stop sleeping. Maybe we need to stop sleeping at this point. Oh, word of the day. We didn't even do that. We still got to do that. Hold on. Got to do the word of the day. We haven't done it this whole week. Marie says, going for my walk. See you Sunday. Thanks, Mint. Marie, thank you for being here every day. It was great seeing you in New York. Again, I couldn't believe you were there. I was like, Marie, you're here. And hopefully I'll see you again in the future. All right, so let's see if we get a good one. Let's see if we get a good one. I better be able to say this one now. Been on a good streak. Plenitude. Okay, this is obviously off the plenty, right? Because it's abundant fullness. So plenitude. Plenitude. Why is the D before the U there? I swear I'm not making this up, bro. It's like actually in a market with plenitude capital, it should be plentitude. Plenitude capital. Discipline, not opportunity, is the edge. Dude, it's from the base of the word plenty, obviously, based on the definition. But how the hell do you say this thing? Plenitude. Dude, even Gemini doesn't have an exact. Like, I'll go to Merriam-Webster.
Plenitude.
Oh, that makes more sense when you say it like that. Okay. Anyway, this might be why I keep getting this dream, bro. This dream I told you guys about before FOMC. I think I need to go to a therapist to psychoanalyze what the hell is happening. Every month, literally every month, I get a dream that I am back in senior year of high school and I have not submitted the required assignments I need to submit in order to graduate. And I am running around the school talking to all these teachers, trying to figure out how I can like submit homework or retake a test or whatever to pass high school. Like, this dream is becoming a bit crazy. And maybe it's because I never learned how to speak in high school, which is why I keep messing up on these words. And I need to go back to school to learn how to speak. But like, honestly, dude, it's a scary dream. Like, it really is a scary dream. Like, I wake up like sweating, like, and then I remember I'm 28 years old. Like, I feel like I didn't pass high school. It's never college, by the way. It's always high school. It's a common reoccurring dream. Can find an article on Google about. Really? Let's ask Gemini. Is it a common dream for me to feel like I am failing high school, even though I'm 28 and graduated? Is this something many people dream about? Like, it's a really weird thing. Wow, you're right. Gemini says it's an extremely common dream for adults, even years or decades after graduating. It is widely considered a stress dream or anxiety dream rather than a memory-based dream. These dreams often surface during stressful periods such as career pressure, new responsibilities, or major life changes. Impressionable years metaphor. High school is often the first time individuals experience high stakes pressure, deadlines, and social evaluation. The brain uses this familiar setting to represent modern day anxiety. Sometimes this indicates a feeling of not having a finished stage of life or feeling insecure about your future. You know, see, this is why you don't need a therapist anymore. I mean, this is good enough. Like, all right. Thank you, Gemini. Insecure about the future. That's all I needed to know. I don't need to spend $200 on a therapist now. Now, how do we resolve this? Who knows? I don't know how to fix this shit, but it is such a weird dream. Also, the same girl keeps showing up in my dream too, dude. This girl I used to talk to back in college. Like, I don't know why she keeps showing up in my dream either. I'm over her. I don't talk to her anymore. Maybe the dream is telling me to hit her up again, but it's like, goodness gracious. Like, can she leave my dreams? Like, I need to like move on with my life, dude. Anyway, Davis? Oh my gosh. Davis will be with me in LA and on the market open on Friday. Look, he's staying in my room, guys. I don't know what you want me to say. He's literally not buying his own hotel room. He's like, bro, you have 2 beds. I'm not spending money on a hotel room. And I'm like, he's a mod. What am I supposed to do? Like, so it is what it is. I'm ready for the jokes. There's not much more I can do about it, but yes, he'll he'll be there at the LA meetup as well. That girl is probably Tanner. Oh my gosh. You should call her and tell her that she's in your dreams, dude. I think she would be freaked out. Works 100% of the time. Oh my gosh. All right, I'm out. Thank you, everybody. I will see you guys Sunday for the futures. I will not be doing a market close. Again, I don't think things are going to be too different on the close. We'll see what happens, but we got 3 hours left. Oil headlines continue to make the markets feel a bit more volatile. S&P down 0.5%. Hopefully nothing crazy happens over the weekend, and then on the Sunday futures, we can potentially get a rebound for going into the last week of March. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy. Hopefully you get some rest, relax, and we'll be back 1 more week of March, and we'll start it off on Sunday. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Love you all. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Bye, everybody.